Once again, it's another week, another upgrade. My name is Gary Muttley, and he is the one and only
Len Carmichael, Landmine Studios.
What's going on, Len?
Oh, you know, another day, another nickel.
Yeah, another interesting week. Every day, it's something new.
I was stuck in the studio all weekend attempting to make money, and money I made, but it was also an interesting experience. Just some throwback musicianship that I hadn't seen in quite a long time, and it was quite impressive.
Impressive, huh?
Yes. I won't tip my hat as to which way it was impressive, but it was impressive.
That's interesting. You're leaving it kind of. I'm like, yeah. I want to know more.
Well, let's just say that Saturday we worked from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and then Sunday we worked 10 to like 6, and we tracked 16 songs. Oof. In full.
Wow.
So we did drums live with amps in the room, like everything just blaring away. And I just got some good mic positions so that not too much of it's in the overheads. And I was a real stickler for, yelling out to tune between each take so that if something had to be retaken,
yeah,
it wouldn't really be too much of an issue in the overheads necessarily. And we tracked 16 soup to nuts with overdubs, solos, etc., and vocals.
Wow.
And it was interesting. It was interesting. I hadn't done a marathon like that in a while, so that was my weekend. I'm fucking exhausted.
It sounds like it could be kind of cool, maybe something different.
Could be. It could be.
I'm just gonna let that hang right there.
What did you get into this weekend?
Me, I did not a goddamn thing.
What do you mean, under quarantine conditions?
Yeah,
you weren't out traveling everywhere?
I mean, I did go out for a minute and do some hit and run Christmas shopping real quick. Luckily, the mall that we went to was not very crowded, but just had to get a couple of things and ran up by my mother. Went to the Newberry Comics in the mall. Hit Think Geek. Got some Funko Pops. Got some other stuff.
My mom told me that she went to the mall.
Really?
And I'm like, all right, look, you're like 70. You have no business in public places right now. Go stay home. But number two, she said the mall was actually empty, and the only place that was busy was the Apple Store. Everything else was just like dead city. It was like Raccoon City out there. Everybody's just, picking over the trash and just staring at you from a distance.
Wow. Yeah, so. It wasn't that dead, but like I said, we were trying to be in and out. We weren't trying to stick around all day.
So like
the fester mess.
Last Tuesday, when we had just gotten off the call with Sonny, it basically turned to my birthday, and literally I haven't really been anywhere since then other than my studio. But my mom calls me and she's like, "Yo, what do you want for your birthday?" And I'm like, "I just want you to leave me alone." What? Just for a day. I just want to be left alone for a whole entire day.
I want a vacation.
Yeah, pretty much. I want a vacation from everything and everyone. I did not receive what I wanted. It was interesting to say the least.
I want you to leave me alone.
People don't understand the value of just like as Pantera might call it, 5 minutes alone.
As much as I love Pantera, I hate that song.
It doesn't matter if you hate that song or not.
I mean, I get the point of it.
The point, yeah.
I just think it's a whack song.
Well, it is a whack song, but I mean, they have a lot of whack songs, and they have some cool shit sprinkled in the middle that kept me as a young, angry male entertained. I was entertained.
I have to keep up my reputation as a hater.
That's fine. You can hate as much as you want. I mean, that's all I do is hate, so it's fine.
I mean, I would say I spend a good portion of my time doing the same.
I mean, honestly, my initial name on Instagram and in various other places was No Fun Len. Because I am the consummate hater. I could easily win the player haters ball. There's no way that I would not beat Silky Johnson.
Well,
it's just not possible.
There's a crew of us that you got to hang out with because there's a lot of arguments as to who is the biggest hater.
Well, all right, wait. I might lose to Glenn. Glenn
is up there, but also my brother
is huge hater.
and the three of us argue over which of the three of us is the biggest hater.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really want to get into that battle royal, knock yourself out.
I don't know. I think I might get it. I might just win. Because I even hate peanut butter. I'll hate on peanut butter. And most people are like, yo, I can't believe you hate peanut butter.
I might have you beat. I don't like bacon.
Whoa, man.
See? One up shit all night. But we won't, because we have a guest.
We do have a guest.
He's going to keep us, from hating all night.
I'm not exactly sure he's going to keep us from hating, because my hate train can't be slowed down. But I know our guest because when I joined Man Alive, it was because he was making an exit from Man Alive. He is currently in Hundreds of Awe. His name is Tom. Tom, welcome to the show. Welcome to the upgrade. Glad to have you here.
Hey, thank you.
So, you left Man Alive, and I jumped in right after you left. I jumped in on bass, because you were playing bass, correct?
I was playing bass, yeah. I had played guitar for Man Alive as well at some point in history.
I think everybody has played guitar, because I played guitar for it right before we just packed it in. Because basically what happened was I joined when you left, then Nate left, and I was like, well, I play guitar way better than I play bass, so I'll just jump over to guitar. And then we got Smoogs from Number 12 / various other band I was in, Batter Up, to jump in on bass, and then it all fell apart when Kwame decided that he wanted to live in California. But regardless, that was like my real introduction to you, was trying to figure out what the hell you even played on some of those releases. I was like, what is this?
I would say that was my introduction to you, but I think I had known you from recording people. Well, not known you. I hadn't met you, but I think like people had talked about recording with you, and you were like a big name in the recording biz, So I was like, oh yeah, Len. Okay, that guy.
Yeah. Well, it's probably just due to Chris from Nora, really.
Chris did speak very highly of you.
He's become a great friend of mine over the last probably 5 years or so. And you know what? It's a shame that nobody ever took pictures of him. Oh, man. So, how did you get started playing music? Like, I just, as a kid, I started because an uncle of mine overheard me saying how I wanted to learn how to play guitar, and he just kind of handed me a guitar like 6 weeks later randomly. He's like, here you go. And I'm like, well, this ain't going to do me any good because I don't know how to play it. But eventually I learned on my own.
Wait, so you're self-taught?
100%. I took like 3 lessons, 4 lessons when I was a kid, and I hated the teacher. So like I was like, yo, I just want to play like Warrant riffs and like hair metal stuff, and you're teaching me Three Blind Mice, and I'm like, well, this is all easy. Like I'm not even like a proficient guitar player at all, but we could do this all night. I'm good with this. Can you teach me how to riff? And he had no interest in teaching me anything fun. He only wanted me to learn the fundamentals. Looking back, he was probably right, but at 12, I was right in my own mind. So I didn't play until I was 20. I went out and bought a new guitar myself, one that was actually like full size, not like a little kid's guitar. And I just decided, I was like, all right, well, it's time to learn how to play Slayer. And I learned how to play Rain and Blood straight through. So, I just listened to that record and I just learned every riff as best as I could. I'm not saying that I was perfect on it, but I felt fucking amazing. I'll tell you that right now.
Nice.
So now it's just like, I don't know how to play guitar. I just know how to make it make noise. and if it's making the noise that I want to hear, then it's right. And otherwise, I try not to worry too much about it.
Some people may say that that's, actually more authentic and maybe better than being a, one of these people that knows all the theory and all that jazz,
I would say that I've learned a little bit of theory just because I needed to for the studio. Yeah. But it's more about modes and learning how to find like melodies and scales and stuff. But I would say I don't know like even a quarter of what most people would know.
Yeah.
But how did you get started?
Well, I think we're probably around the same age. I'm 42.
44.
44, okay. So yeah, when I started being coherent of music, like glam rock was like the big thing, It was like,
love it.
That's
love
all
it.
that was on MTV.
I'm with it.
So like, yeah, I think like Def Leppard, Hysteria, and like the self-titled Skid Row, like those were like the first big albums I remember sort of coming into my sphere. 4th grade.
Hysteria is very high on my list, by the way.
Awesome.
I love that record.
That's a very influential record for more people than would care to admit.
Definitely. I like the record before it even better. And in fact,
Pyromania is very good.
In fact, you could catch me listening to Pyromania at least once a month in the basement while I'm just like working. It's just playing in the background. I think it's actually one of the greatest recordings of all time.
So I heard a rumor that the drums on Pyromania aren't real drums.
I mean, it's possible.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't take away from the brilliance of the album. I think it sounds great, and it's got some ragers on it too.
Photograph is just insane as a song. Like the melody, the vocal melodies on that, they're just insane.
I want to say Pyromania has Photograph, Rock of the Ages,
yep,
Foolin',
yep.
But Hysteria got some bangers too. Bangers in a different way, but still,
I mean, that was the record that really broke them. I remember being, I went to this like summer camp, and the whole summer was about Hysteria, all day.
That record was huge. There were 7 singles off of that record.
They all went number 1, basically.
Yeah, they were all tremendous.
But I mean, I love that. I like both records.
Like at that point, glam was like bigger than life. You know what I mean? It was like it was
like
life. Yeah, it was just. But at the same time, it was also very sort of like it was like a spectacle to watch. It wasn't it wasn't like you watched a Def Leppard video and said, "Oh, those guys look like me. I could do that." Like, no, it was just like being a rock star was like this thing, and I was observing it. So the idea of like playing music at that point was very sort of like, no, that's not something I can do. Like,
it was totally removed. Like you could do it, but you're not going to be like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think my friend in like 5th grade had like started to play guitar and kind of convinced me to get into it. From like 3rd grade on, I was like skateboarding a lot. Like skateboarding was like my life. And I used to skate with this kid, and his brother had a guitar, and he started playing guitar, and he kind of convinced me. And just like Len, I went to a guitar teacher, and they wanted to teach me like music theory. And I was like, yo, can you teach me the opening riff to like pour some sugar on me? Like, I'd be really into that. Like,
I'm going to tell you right now, 3 weeks ago, I finally sat down and I was like, hey, I'm going to figure out how to play Pour Some Sugar on Me. Literally, I was just sitting here listening to it. I was like, this does not sound that complicated. And then I tried to play it, and I'm like, okay, there's a little bit of weirdness in this riff.
It needs a little, yeah.
It takes a little, you got to have a little funk on it to make it right.
I learned it because it was in a guitar magazine, and I was like, yeah, I got to get this. I got it down pretty good. Because listen, I had the same experience you guys had, kind of. Although I took lessons for a short time, and then I got distracted with being a teenager and going out and doing stupid shit. But my teacher wasn't just drilling the fundamentals. Like we were going over some stuff. It wasn't that bad, but for the most, I taught myself. Like I just, I had already been playing for a while because I just was learning from guitar magazines and stuff, and then took a few lessons and then just went in a different direction, but just kept playing at home and like figuring stuff out by ear.
Wow.
And that's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, that's really how I do it. Like, I don't,
So cool.
If you show me something, I'll probably learn it. But if I actually sit down and listen to it and then like noodle it out, I got it. And then I'll almost never forget it.
Yeah, that's what I like. A lot of times, like I'll figure stuff out by ear. Like even like filling in for bands, it's like they would just give me the tape or whatever, and then I would just learn it. And they're like, "Yo, how did you figure that out so quick?" I'm like, "I just you
play one of 4 notes, bro. It's not that hard." Not you, but most bands. Like most bands have a set range of things that they play. And it makes it really easy to just like jump in there.
Oh yeah, but when when you learn that way, it's easy to kind of just grab it that way. Like you give me written out music, I'm like, but like just like you said, you play it a couple of times, I listen to it, and then like I could just play it because I learned that way.
That was my struggle with joining Man Alive, is that the things that were written did not follow any specific pattern. So I struggled to figure out exactly what was going on because I was like, this is way outside the box of like follow the pattern. No song was exactly the same. Even if you were touching similar notes, they were at like not in the same interval. Like things were all over the place. And I would just be like, I don't even know where I'm at right now. I am lost in the woods. So when you left Man Alive, that was when you started Hundreds of Ball?
When I left Man Alive, I was moving up to Albany, and that's why I left. I think I was in like 5 bands in New Jersey. And so I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to keep doing these bands. And there was like one of the bands I was in was like an instrumental band that had like a practice space and practiced like every Saturday. And I was like, okay, I could probably pull that off like once a month, like come down here. But like these bands that were practicing on like Tuesday night, like there was no way I was going to be able to do that.
Yeah, no way.
So like a good chunk of the bands I was in like either got new people to play or broke up or like slowly just deteriorated because I wasn't down there to like helm things, you know what I mean?
So are you band dad typically? Are you like the guy?
Yeah. It sucks.
That was that was the best part of joining after you left, was that it was the first time that I was not band dad.
So isn't that a great feeling?
Yeah, it's like
I've been in that spot so many times, and there's one great thing about playing with Mickey's crew. Like, Mike is going to take everything. Okay, cool. I don't have to book shows. I don't have to
rile every. Yeah.
No. Okay. Cool.
I think I was when in like the situations when I was band dad, it was probably 50-50 at fault. It was probably like 50-50 the other people were lazy, and 50-50 I was just an overbearing person in my mid-20s. The last like 2 or 3 bands I've been in, it's been a pretty good equal, like I don't have to do band dad all that much at all, really. It's
a wonderful thing.
It's like I think that's part of just like being in a band with a bunch of people that are like late 30s, early 40s. Is it's just like, okay, you know that it sucks if like one person has to do all this, so we're all going to split it up, and it's like everybody just knows. I think like maybe when I was like 18 to like mid-20s or whatever, I was still being in bands with kids who just like had never lived on their own before, and were like, oh no, somebody's just going to take care of it, right? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk shit like that.
No, but it's the truth. It's not talking shit.
Yeah.
A lot of those people probably go back and be like, yeah, he's right.
Well, I think maybe like a lot of the people that were the just show up kind of people kind of stopped playing in bands once there weren't people to dad them to be in a band.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh, okay, I guess they just didn't want to be in a band the whole time.
Yeah, I've definitely known people like that.
So,
yeah, I mean, so my last band was this band called Descent, and me and Mitchell, the bass player, were co-band dad, and if either one of us were to drop the ball, the band just didn't exist anymore. Like,
gotcha.
Like if one of us wasn't booking practice or like calling around getting shows, or me handling the recording portion, etc. Like if we were depending on the other members in the band, nowhere, getting nothing done. And that has like it. I don't mean it as a slight to anybody that was in the band. I just mean that they weren't motivated to do the work that needed to get done. So, we got to play a show in Albany. We got to rent a van. And, I got to call Chris and say, hey, Chris, can I get your van? And I got to do it weeks in advance and then make sure that they pay me. And, every other thing that has to happen. And they would never do it without me. Like, even on trips I didn't go on, I still had to do the band dad thing to get them, prepared. Because, we were supposed to go on this, 3-day or 4-day weekend, and I was going to be stuck in the studio, so we had somebody filling in for me. And, the week of, I'm like, do you guys have, a spot to stay at? Do you have the van? Do you have this? And they're like,
Oh, man.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, and I'm like, you guys got to, you got to figure out, Mitchell's handled the merch portion. He was always the merch guy, coming up with designs, coming up with, figuring how to pay for it, paying for it, picking it up, the whole deal. I'm not that guy. I'm not good with merch. But, the logistics portion, I got you. So, because I wasn't going, the logistics portion definitely was suspect. But so currently you guys are putting out or just put out a new release?
Well, we're like a weekend warrior band, I guess you'd say. We're not a band that's ever gonna tour for 3 months out of the year or anything like that. And so a lot of how the band operates is we'll play a weekend. We'll do Philly, New Jersey, New York, or Boston, or something like that. And then once a year we'll do a 10-day tour, and we'll usually aim for that 10-day tour to have something out new for that 10-day tour. And so this year nobody went on tour, and nobody's playing shows at all. So
I think people are playing shows. They're just not promoting that they're playing shows. Mine are super spreader events.
Okay. Well, we've chosen not to play shows, and it was sort of okay, well, and there was a while there too where we were just locked down and just weren't having band practice. We try to practice once or twice a month, and so we had half the album done. And we were planning on going to the West Coast for tour, and we wanted to have it done by then. And I think when we first got locked down in March, it was oh yeah, we're still going to do this tour.
Nope.
Which is hilarious to think of now. So we decided to just keep writing, but write remotely. So we would send each other files and stuff. And everybody in the band kind of got serious about buying recording equipment to be able to record at home, and it was and we'd have Zoom meetings every Thursday to kind of talk about okay, well, this part needs to change this or this part, and we and so we wrote the other half of the album completely remotely.
Wow. And how do you feel about that record? I actually have my friend Alana is a huge fan of the band. So I let her know that you were coming on the show, and, and she actually had a question for you. Wow. And she wanted to know how tough the collaborative process has been writing the songs, being that you were remote, And obviously the other question was, when will the new music be ready? But she also knew that it was coming out like a week ago. So
sure, yeah. Well, so what would happen a lot of times is I would come up with a song like from start to finish, and I would play 2 guitars, bass, and program drums, and I'd send it to the band and say, what do you think of this? Just as like a way to like start things out. Like, what do we keep? What do you want to add? What, like, you know, and we'd use that as like the skeleton, because it's like you can't get together and jam, you know. Right. You can't like play one riff and be like, oh, okay, let's all jam on this riff. Like, so
what were you using? GarageBand or something like that?
I was using Reaper.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I would send them these like skeletons of a song with the hopes that, you know, they would kind of be able to tear it apart and make it a band experience, not just Tom writes a bunch of songs and people learn the songs, because that would be dumb.
Tom writes the hits.
Yeah. And it was really cool because like that's exactly what took place. Is like everybody sort of like took the song apart and kind of threw in their own spice and sort of like made it theirs and stuff, and so it actually came out really cool. And we finished writing like 5 songs that way, and so we had these 10 songs done. And when the lockdown ended, we like made plans to meet up. And it was so weird because we like got in the same room and played 5 of those songs for the first time in the same room together after sharing them for a while, you know, and it was like one of those things like, oh my God, we did it. You know, like it was a whole new achievement, you know? So
did you find that when you got together, the songs changed from actually playing them as a unit instead of the idea of playing them as a unit? Because that's always my fear, is like anytime I've shared riffs back and forth, I'll take the riff and I'll change it my way a little bit, and then you'll send it back and they change it, and like it starts to come together. But then once you're like physically playing it together as like a team, it's like it gives you that extra like 10% sauce. Did you guys find that?
Yeah. I would say like what we did remotely was like probably 90% done. And then when we got together, there was that extra like, oh, let's just throw this pause in right here. Let's just do this. Now that we're in the same room.
Yeah, adding that extra like, little bit of flavor to it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Also cracked like drums. So when you kind of program out a song, hard to program in a stop. It just like it doesn't always come to you or something like that. So like I totally get that. So you guys are really happy with the songs, proud of them?
Yeah, I see. So in the kind of like I don't know the like genre that we play or what you want to call it. It's not common for a band to release a release that's like over like 15 minutes maybe.
Right.
Which is kind of weird. And this one is a half hour long, and it's like really strange for us to write something that long. But like we're really stoked on it because it definitely varies a lot and kind of goes in and out of things. And I think also it's just kind of like 2020 has been like a really just terrible year, and that's
an understatement.
Yeah, and so like and actually I'm gonna veer off for like a second just to like tie what I get from your podcast into this is that when the lockdown took place and shows were no longer taking place, it was like, okay, I can't play music. But I think the worst part about it was, and then as we went further into the lockdown, was that I'm not going to shows right now, and I'm not like seeing my friends, and I'm not like going out to eat with them after the show to talk to them about like what's happening right now. And so we had COVID, and we had George Floyd, and we had all these things happening in 2020 that were just like, I need to be in a room with my friends right now and be like hearing how they feel about this, and like, and hearing how they're experiencing this too, and I can't be. And I think what your podcast has been for me is a little like window into what that used to feel like. So I mean, the first podcast that you guys put up, I listened to it, and you basically talked about the current situation. I think it was like right when the Democratic primaries were happening, maybe.
Sounds about right. It was like
I think
early May.
No, I think the
April?
first one might have been right after Trump did the Bible thing.
Okay, yeah.
So we were, because I remember, like, our first episode, I was just lit out the box. Like, I was like, God damn it. Like,
I mean, to hear that and just be able to hear two people like talk about these things the way that I would hear people talk about them at a show, and observe the conversation, like, filled that need for me to like be at a show and be around that community and hear people talking about these things and seeing how these things are affecting other people. And so like that, so I just want to say thanks for doing the podcast, because that every week, like, that's what I get from that, is like, it's that substitute for me not being able to go to a show and interact with my friends, and not being able to go out to eat and like just hear people talk about these things. And it's like, I feel like I'm in like that generation of like, all of my friends are probably 10 to 15 years younger than me, and they don't like to talk on the phone. I don't know what the deal is, but nobody likes to talk on the phone. So
I don't like to talk on the phone.
Neither do I.
I would like to interject that I appreciate the fact that you appreciated us, and I appreciate you. Thank you for listening to us. Like, when we started this show, it was literally like, we had talked about doing this show long before COVID started.
Oh yeah, we were talking about it at least a year before,
maybe even 2,
possibly 2.
But it's like there was no time afforded to actually go ahead and like start it, because you're in crazy life. So, but then COVID hit, and we were both locked down, and we're like, hey, you know what? Fuck it, let's do the show. We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy too, because you mentioned that, like, that it sounds like people talking to the show, like, that's how Len and I know each other, just from being in bands and playing shows together and stuff. And like, these are really just an extension of like the same kind of conversations that Len and I would have when we see each other, or like I'd have these conversations with other people, like at the merch table or something, sitting at a show.
Yeah.
And it's really just an extension of that. We don't do like the standard interviews, asking the standard questions and stuff like that. Like, it's really just a conversation the same as we would have hanging out at a show, because that's what we spend a lot of our time doing.
And that's what that totally comes through. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Like,
thank you.
Yeah. So, okay, all right. I'll get back onto the road.
There is no path here. There's no path here. We're just talking. So
it's like,
whatever.
If we got straight to the point, our shows wouldn't be like 3 hours plus.
So I think it's like when you're trying to like write music, but don't have that element of A, playing shows to like road test a song, B, talking to your friends about like what's happening, because we're definitely a band of like current events, you know what I mean? Like I write about what's happening around me, and I didn't have that interaction of like friends to like understand like how like other perspectives of how these things were affecting people. And so like those are like playing the songs live and having those conversations really help kind of like inform the songs a lot. And to not have that has been weird.
But yeah, I mean, I can 100% understand where you're coming from on that, because I mean, the interaction with a crowd, the interaction with your friends, it's like the feedback loop of, am I on the right track? Am I saying things that are resonating, etc.? And as you said, road testing a song, you figure out what people like and what people don't like before you put it on a record.
Yeah.
And you weren't afforded that chance, so now you're like, well, I like it. Fuck it, we're putting it out. Let's do it.
I think it's also too probably like you write a song and you're playing it in your practice space, and you're like, okay, the song's done, and then you play it at a show and you're like, the song's not done.
Yeah.
Yes. We've had that happen with Billy Club because we're kind of going through the same thing because now we're spread out pretty far. Like Glenn and I are in the city, Martin is in Jersey, and Malone is way up, like 2 hours up in Connecticut. So we're doing the remote thing now, also sending files back and forth, and then when we get together, we try to work on stuff. But it's weird because we used to kind of test songs out.
Yeah.
And now, we're finishing these songs before we have a chance to test them out at shows, and it's a different dynamic. And we're like, we hope people still like this when we play it.
So I have to ask, Gary, have you been in Billy Club like since the beginning?
No.
No.
I joined Billy Club actually in June. It'll be 20 years since I joined Billy Club, but
Okay.
they were around for 5 years before that.
Okay.
And they started in 90. They played their first show in 96, and then I joined in 2001. The first show that I played was with E-Town Concrete and Sworn Enemy of Wetlands, and then just kept going from there.
So I have to tell you, like the New York hardcore scene was probably that was like that I wasn't terribly aware of as a kid in like the 90s.
Right.
I think like Sick of It All was on like a major by that point, so like I knew about them.
Yeah, they were on East West, I think, which was part of Warner.
Yeah, I think, was it Just Look Around? Was that the first one?
Yeah, well, no, Just Look Around was still on Relativity.
Yeah, Relativity.
But then Scratch the
Scratch
Surface
Surface.
was the first major label one.
So I want to say Just Look Around came out when I was like a freshman in high school, I think. So New York hardcore, my introduction into that was probably Sick of It All, Just Look Around, and Biohazard Urban Discipline. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Which had a video on MTV.
So me and you had the same intro, basically.
All right.
So I saw the Biohazard video because I would watch Headbangers Ball.
For punishment?
For punishment, yep.
I was just talking about that video because I was talking to my girlfriend about it, and we started talking about it because of Life of Agony, because of the Through and Through video.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, I know this is Coney Island Boardwalk, and like I know half the people in this video. and then like and I was like, yeah, Biohazard Punishment, same thing. Like when they're walking across the Brooklyn Bridge, it's like I know that dude and that dude and that dude. And there's Rich Darkside, crowd surfing on top of everybody.
So I saw that video on Headbangers Ball so what would happen is I was part of a group of kids that would just go to Moonlight Bowling, and at Moonlight Bowling they would play Headbangers Ball.
Oh wow!
Like at midnight when it would come on, it would just that's whatever they would put on, and we would be there till 2 a.m, and it would be over, and then we'd go home. But like the Biohazard video would come on every week, guaranteed for like a couple months. And then my friend was like, yo, they're playing at City Gardens, and I live like less than 3 miles from City Gardens. So they were like, yep, let's go. So my friend Tim was like, yo, let's go. I was like, all right, we went, and it was Biohazard and Sick of It All.
What?
Yeah, 92. It's actually there's a live set of Sick of It Alls that's from that night on one of the CDs. There's like a couple songs. It's like hidden, like a hidden track or whatever. And yeah, so that was my introduction, much like yours was Sick of It All and Biohazard.
And that's so funny because my introduction involved Biohazard, but it was a little bit different.
Okay.
You guys mentioned that you're 42, 44. I'm a little older. I'm 47.
Okay.
When I was in high school, I was total metal kid. All about metal, listening to Overkill, Testament, all that stuff. And the metal kids would trade tapes. And that's how I got into a lot of different stuff. That's also how I got into gangster rap, because somebody gave me a tape with like Fate's Warning on one side and NWA Straight Outta Compton on the other side.
Well, that's a killer tape.
It is a killer tape, and I love Fate's Warning, but that Straight Outta Compton got worn the fuck out.
For good reason.
We were trading tapes, and like slowly sneaking into that mix was like Carnivore Retaliation, Leeway, Born to Expire, Agnostic Front, couple other bands, and like one of the kids that was like one of the biggest metal kids in the school suddenly shows up one day with his head shaved, with a Biohazard hat, side-by-side shirt, boots, braces, the whole nine. We're all just like, what the fuck? Like, it was Biohazard, and this was like I graduated high school in 1990, so this was like right as Biohazard was starting to really grow out of just New York and become a bigger thing, like because the self-titled record came out in 90, and all of a sudden started getting more into that stuff, and then like hearing about Biohazard, and like Biohazard played the first hardcore show I ever went to. It was the last Thrash Bash at Lemoore in 91. It might have been March of 91. It was the Cro-Mags when they got back with John Joseph. It was John Joseph and Harley together again, before Alpha Omega came out. And Typo Negative, their first show, I think, as Typo Negative. White Zombie opened the show when nobody knew, like they were just a local band. But Biohazard came out, and like Billy does like a somersault with his guitar onto the crowd, and I'm just like, holy shit, what is this? And Leeway played that show also, and it was just like from there I was totally hooked.
So I watched that video, the Punishment video, and over time I think I've met almost every single person that I like, that I could recognize out of that video that is still alive these days, because there are a few people that I know are no longer with us, but it's to the point where I accidentally grew within the whole recording thing, that when I ended up in California one of the last times, I actually got invited over to Billy's studio, and we hung out for like 3 hours just shooting the shit about music and like just hanging out. He gave me a full walkthrough of Firewater Studios, and like for me it was like a validation of all the work I've put in, but also like it kind of brought the whole showing up in hardcore full circle, because that was like the first band that I was even introduced to.
Yeah, so why the whole like I guess like Biohazard sort of had that, like I guess like people mention Biohazard and Sick of It All together, because I guess were they the first two to like get that sort of commercial success out of that scene, would you say?
To that level, yeah, I think, because Agnostic Front had toured a lot, and Agnostic Front played a lot of shows. Like they toured a lot with metal bands, because one of the first times I saw Agnostic Front, they were on tour with like Obituary, Cannibal Corpse, and Malevolent Creation.
Oh, wow.
There were a lot of fights that night.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
At the Ritz, that show, and that was a crazy show. But Agnostic Front and like some of those bands have started touring more with metal bands, but I guess if you look at the MTV kind of thing,
yeah, right, they were the first ones to get the
they were the first ones. Like, yeah, they showed We Gotta Know by the Cro-Mags, and they showed Anthem by Agnostic Front, but they you know, like suddenly Biohazard was on there hanging out with Ricky Rackman.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and Sick of It All wasn't on there hanging out, but like they started playing their videos more and more. And so, you know, and Life of Agony was a big part of that too, although they were a little bit different musically.
Yeah.
But since they kind of came from the hardcore scene, you know, MTV went with that through and through video, and that became a big deal. So, yeah, I guess for that era, you could say that, but they did kind of dabble even before that.
So where did you grow up, Tom?
So I grew up down what's now called the Jersey Shore, but back then we just called it the beach. I grew up in Toms River, New Jersey, just like 15
I know.
minutes from the beach.
Seaside.
Yeah. I was like 10 minutes from Seaside. Growing up, like I think so here's sort of like why I heard like New York hardcore my freshman year, but I didn't like grab on I didn't grab onto it. And I think maybe the reason was like when I was in 8th grade, that's when like Nirvana and Sonic Youth and Dinosaur Jr. and all that stuff got really, really big.
Love it.
And I grabbed onto that out of glam rock because that sort of was like, oh, well, these kids look like me and they skate and like their songs aren't that hard. They're not playing like crazy guitar solos or finger tapping. I could learn all these, like, I could learn a whole Nirvana album in like a week. And like, you know, me and my friends can play them. And these kids just kind of like look like me. You know, I was like a white dude from the burbs, you know, like, and I think when my first introduction to hardcore being like Biohazard and Sick of It All, I was like, these guys don't look like me at all. They look fucking scary as hell. And they obviously have a different life experience than me. And while I really like when I first got Just Look Around, like the lyrics to that are great.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. But I wasn't about to like shave my head, get a white tank top, and like make that my like aesthetic. You know, because I was like, I can't, I'm not that guy. I'm not like from that world. And I think in like 8th grade, going to school in like an all white, like various like socially economic range, but like the Chronic had come out, and all of a sudden, all these like white dudes who like had pretty wealthy families all of a sudden we're like coming to school and like gear, like trying to look like the videos.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they all had the accent. They were like, yo, fucking cops are pigs, bro. And I'd be like, last year you didn't sound like that. And you were like playing like lacrosse at like your family's country club. I remember that, you know, like,
oh, man.
And I remember thinking it was weird, and I didn't know why. Because at that point in 8th grade, I don't know anything about cultural appropriation. I don't know anything about systemic racism at that point. So, but I'm just like, this is weird that they're like romanticizing this. Like, it seems like what is being talked about in the songs is not necessarily like, oh, we love the fact that we have to wake up and sell drugs. It's great. Like, no, they're not saying that. But like, white kids in my town would be like, yo, I'm going to romanticize this.
A great time.
Yeah. And I was really weirded out by like that sort of like taking an aesthetic that's not really you and like trying to put it on. And so like when I heard Sick of It All and Biohazard, I was like, this is cool. It's scary. And I think that's why I like it. And that's why it's cool. But like, I'm not about to front like I grew up like these guys or can even understand this. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So I sort of like dipped out of like the New York hardcore stuff after that and got really into like, you know, the just like fast, like straight edge hardcore bands. that had all been broken up for like 10 years. So I was listening to like Uniform Choice and Minor Threat and all that stuff. Didn't really delve back into New York hardcore until about 2004 maybe. I was in a band with this woman named Vanessa, and Vanessa had played drums for a New York hardcore band called Wage of Sin, which had Rachel from Most Precious Blood in it.
Yes.
And Vanessa grew up going to all those shows that you probably played, and I had no idea who the hell Billy Club was, but Vanessa was like, "Yo, Billy Club, they're like my favorite band." Like she was telling me about going to see like Billy Club in E-Town at Coney Island High, and like just like all these things, and I had no idea about any of this stuff. And she's like, "No, hold on," and she takes me back to her house one night and puts on the New York hardcore documentary with like Everybody Gets Hurt and like District 9 and like all these bands that I had no idea about. And she's like, "Yo, I'm friends with all these guys. You got to see this." And I was like,
I got to tell you, I have that VHS upstairs. It's upstairs somewhere in a box.
It's so good. It's so good.
Once again, it's so funny because that same conversation that I told you I was having with my girlfriend talking about Life of Agony, randomly on YouTube, a Crown of Thorns video shows up, and it's footage from that documentary.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, watch. And if you've seen it, it's when James DeJean, Mike DeJean's brother, like gets into a scuffle with somebody and then just goes back out and starts fighting the dude. And I told her, I'm like, watch, because you're going to see me in a minute. And sure enough, then suddenly I'm in the frame. I'm wearing a fucking Steel Reserve t-shirt. and I'm just like, oh yeah, I remember this show, because it's like me and Puerto Rican Mike and like a couple of other like old heads are all like, trying to squash the thing, and it's like, oh, what a mess.
So I have a good Puerto Rican Mike situation.
Oh Jesus!
But also it was scary at the moment. One of the last shows Descent we played in New York City, and he happened to be at the show. I don't know if he was there playing, or like I don't remember all the situations, but he came to the show and I was like, "Yo, what's up?" And we were talking, and he's like, "I know you," and I'm like, "Whoa, what's up?"
Oh shit!
He's like,
I could go many different ways.
He was like, "You did that record for District 9, the last thing we put out, and it was like clipping and popping all over the place. What happened?" And I'm like, "When I delivered the product, it sounded fine. I don't know what happened after that." I was like, "I'm sorry that you feel this way. It was an error somewhere, not with me."
Oh man.
So I was like, please no, not today.
that was like the funny thing was like when I met Vanessa, she was playing drums for this band called For All It's Worth, and they were like a fast hardcore band from Connecticut, and she would tell me like she would go to shows and like I don't know, somebody from like Everybody Gets Hurt would just be done getting into a fight. There'd be like blood all over his shirt, and he'd just walk up to Vanessa and be like, "Vanessa, it's really good to see you. I'm so glad." And like he'd have like blood all over his shirt, and Vanessa would be like, "I can't stop looking at the blood all over his shirt, but I'm like trying to be nice, but it's scary as hell." Like
that's how it is. It's like it get rough, and then all of a sudden super nice. Like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah,
it's just a switch.
So like
it's just a switch.
That whole scene is like it's so like foreign to me until I started playing in a band with her, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I like grew up with all this," and I was like, "Oh man, this is so intense."
Yeah, I definitely remember seeing them a few times. I definitely saw them at Castle Heights, and I feel like I saw them at least one or two other times. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah,
but they're all good people in that band.
Totally.
Did you fill in on Play for Wages Sin for a little while?
No.
Okay.
After Wages Sin broke up, Vanessa and I started playing in a band called In First Person, And
I remember her talking about that
like,
as well.
yeah, we did like an LP and some splits and stuff, and yeah, it was cool. It was nice, but lots of car rides where Vanessa would put on E-Town Concrete at like 2 a.m, and
no surprise, surprises had by that statement.
So it's interesting because I feel like I sort of come from that more like, I don't know, DIY ebullition noisy scene or whatever, and Gary is like, full in the like New York thing, but there's still these like points of similarity, where like we all
there's so many
same thing at one point or know the same
there's
people,
so many connections all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that my connection, I started in the early to mid 90s, and I was mainly purely from a listening standpoint. I didn't start playing like in bands until around 2000, and that's around when I met Gary. But I was like 2 feet, 3 arms, and my whole back into like the metalcore thing, but the original metalcore thing before it became whatever the fuck it is right now, which is not like what it was.
Well, that's like deathcore, because people talk about deathcore now, but like the original deathcore was like All Out War and Irate.
Yeah,
and
where
like
it's
a couple
like
other bands that were like actually mixing like hardcore and death metal, as opposed to now, which is just I don't even know what the fuck it is now.
It's just all breakdowns and nonsense. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not like
there's like no substance. It's just like, here, have a mosh riff, and then we're gonna put a slower mosh riff on top of your mosh riff, and then you got a song.
We heard you like breakdowns, so we put breakdowns.
Breakdown after breakdown.
In the middle of this breakdown, we're gonna put another breakdown.
So I was doing a little research on you, Tom, and I saw that you were in You and I.
Yes.
Were you original member?
Yes.
Okay.
I was in it for the whole spiel.
The whole spiel. Okay.
Actually, funny story about that. I'll bring up that I'm always trying to figure out a way to bridge these gaps. Are you guys familiar with some guy named Beto? And I think he filled in on bass for Madball or something like that.
Beto? You want to bridge a gap? His son, Caden, just booked time with me at Landmine Studios for January 2nd.
How old is this kid?
I don't know, old enough to be in a band.
Shit, that's awesome.
I'm not exactly sure, but
we talked about this the other day. Isn't his whole band like kids of people in other bands?
Yeah, band kids or kids of people whose parents.
Because we're getting to that age now.
Yeah,
where that shit is happening.
So cool. Well,
but, I know Beto.
All right, so I'm walking down the street one day with my friend Brian down in Asbury Park, and Brian was friends with Beto, and I had never met the guy before. And Brian's just like, "Yo, Beto," and it turns out that Beto was, I don't know if he was married to this woman or if they were in a relationship, but this woman, Casey, who sang in this band called Outlook when I was a kid, and that's who he was with. But he starts talking to this guy Beto, and it turns out Beto like filled in for a bunch of these like New York hardcore bands at some point.
He's also been in 25 to Life like most of the time the band existed.
Yeah, he was in 25 to Life, and I know he played in Madball at some point.
Yeah, for a little while at least.
Yeah.
So like just before that, like 2 weeks before that, 2 weeks after that, Brian was headed to Kentucky because this band called Endpoint was doing a reunion.
Yep.
And Beto's like, who's that? And Brian's like, that band from the 90s that like people used to say cried all the time? And Beto goes, "No, dude, you're talking about You and I." And I was like, how the fuck does Beto know who You and I is? And I'm standing here, and he doesn't know that I was in the band. And Brian is like, "Holy shit, like Beto knows who You and I is." And I was like, and I'm standing there, and he's like, "Beto, this guy was in that band. And then Beto tells me some story about like Hoya and somebody else were like out to eat somewhere, and they found out that emo was short for emotional, and Hoya like lost his shit because he was just like, no way, it doesn't mean that, no way. Like, it was just like the funniest thing to them.
Oh man.
But yeah, so long story short, I started playing in UNI when I was 17, and we were in that band till I was 20, so 3 years. Did 4 releases, which just came out on a double LP, actually. Not to like, you know, promote anything or anything. But, yeah.
I mean, I listened to a lot of UNI by order of closeness. One of my ex-girlfriends was obsessed with UNI, but I had no idea that you were in the band until like somewhat recently, because by the time I met you, it had already been many years since you had been in the band, so it just didn't come up. But she was obsessed with it, so I just wanted to, like, you know, point out that I've been aware of you for a lot longer than I even knew.
Well, actually, so that I like, it is weird because it was like I was like 17 when I did all that,
right,
and 20 when the band got done, and I'm like 44 now. And so, like, for people to tell me that, like, oh yeah, like, you guys are my friend's favorite band, or like, you know, like, it's really strange to me because that just seems like such a long time ago.
It was a whole lifetime ago, basically.
Yeah. The weird thing about what you just said, I have a story very similar. I got divorced when I was like 29, I think, and had to start to date again at like 30, and it was like really weird and strange and awkward because like there's just a lot of like I feel like when you're a musician in a hardcore band, it's hard to explain that to like people outside of that. It's not really a conversation that like it's not a conversation that you want to have multiple times on dates, and so because
it can go like cool, or it can get really weird.
Totally. So when I first met my wife, who I'm married to now, she had like gone to some hardcore shows and stuff, but she was not like, you know, entrenched in like the hardcore scene or anything like that. So I forget how it came up, but we were talking, and she mentioned that the band Thursday, and I was like, oh yeah, I used to live with those guys, and I was like, which album of theirs do you have? And she tells me, and it turned out that I did the screams on like 2 of the songs on that
Which one are you on? Waiting?
I'm on Full Collapse.
Full Collapse, okay.
And she's like, wait, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. She's like, what songs are you on? And I told her, and she's like, I've been listening to you scream since I was in high school. This is so weird. Like, it just like totally freaked her out that she was like, so I've kind of known you longer than I thought I have. You know, like.
Well, so in recording, I've met like random people, but Bill Henderson, you know Bill?
Bill, yeah. Bill was in the first like original Thursday, yeah.
He lives legitimately 5 minutes from me. I drive by his street/house all the time because like there's a diner over there that's really good, and as well there's like an Italian restaurant I actually ate at for my birthday like 3 nights ago. My mom took me out for my birthday, and I'm like legitimately around the corner from Bill's house. So I met Bill because he was going to TCNJ, and I was going to Ryder, and they were throwing shows at TCNJ, so I would go over there, and like, you know, Thursday played there. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And like, I knew of them before they blew up, but I was not like a huge fan. But then when Full Collapse came out, I was like, oh shit, they're really fucking good. So I did not know you were on that record. This is all breaking news to me.
Yeah. The weird thing about that was, I was in a band at that point called the
I know the assistant.
The assistant, who and like us and Thursday would like play a lot of shows together and stuff, and then it was like, and at one point, I think it was when Bill, like the band wanted to do more, and Bill was like not really into that, like he didn't want to be in a band that toured and stuff. And Jeff was like, "Do you want to play guitar?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm in the assistant. I'm kind of like really into like what I'm playing and stuff." And it also kind of seemed like there were some things that Thursday was kind of like into that I was kind of like, I don't know if I could do that with a straight face. Like there was like, like one day, like the USA network was like doing some like reality show thing, and they needed a band in the background. Like Thursday, like got the gig, and like I was just like, I'm just not sure if I could do that, but like, hell yeah, like you guys should go ahead and do that. And then they ended up getting Steve to play guitar for them. He was like a really great guitar player.
Yeah, no, he's really good.
But yeah, like, so once they wrote Full Collapse and stuff, Jeff gave me a call and was like, "Hey, like, we have a couple of songs that we think that you could like scream on," because he openly admitted, he's like, nobody in the band really has a good scream. We think you should come down and do these screams for us. It's like, sure.
So are you on I Am the Killer?
I am on Cross Out the Eyes and Autobiography of a Nation.
Okay.
Yeah. So I get down there, and the guy who was recording for them was this guy who plays in Murphy's Law. His name was Sal.
Villanueva?
Yeah.
I know Sal. I recorded with Sal one time, a long time ago. My old band, I had a band called Distance, which was me and Rafe, who ended up playing drums for Kill Your Idols for a long time.
Oh, nice.
And the other two guys were from Jersey, and we recorded 2 tracks that were on New York's Hardest 3. And we we recorded them with Sal and Tim, who owned Big Blue Meanie Studios.
That
was when we recorded. It was up in Utica, New York.
Okay, they had moved to
he was in Jersey, and then at one point went to Utica, and then I think he came back to Jersey.
Yeah, it was in. This was like 2002, 2001, something like that, and it was in like Patterson, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, that was later on, because we recorded. That band ended in early '99, so we probably recorded that in early '98, maybe.
Okay.
But it didn't come out until like 2001.
Well, that's how things work.
Yeah, it came out on Go-Kart Records.
Oh wow!
Originally, it was going to be for Black Pumpkin, which was Sal's label.
Oh, that was that.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what happened. Like, I never even had a copy of it. I finally bought a copy off eBay recently. Like, it was the only thing that I recorded that I did not own, and I had never even seen it. And then I finally found it on eBay for a decent price, because I looked before and it was like $40-$50. I'm like, I'm not paying $50 for my own shit. And then finally I got it, and I looked at it. I was like, wow. Like, somebody had sent me the 2 tracks, but I never owned a physical copy of it until then. But yeah, that was with Sal.
Nice.
So everything's connected.
Yeah, like I showed up and Jeff was like, here's a song, Cross Out the Eyes, or not, Autobiography of a Nation, and he's like, I have this chorus part that I want you to sing. And I was like, okay, cool. And then they play it for me, and I hear it, and I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, and here's the lyrics for the rest of the song if you want to, like, improv. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So we run the song, and I start doing these, like, screams behind the melodic singing. Sal stops the tape, and he's just like, holy shit, I've never heard anything like he had never heard like that whole like melodic, screamy, singing sort of stuff,
Right.
And to him, it was like a whole new ground, But like to us, I was like, oh yeah, this is just a style of music that's been around for a while, and actually, this is normal. This is probably the more like polished version of that. But yeah, and Sal, I think, had never really heard, that style of music before, and it was really, really weird to be like, oh, did I just introduce the guy from Murphy's Law to screamo? Like, this is such a strange thing right now. Like that this is happening. Like it was kind of a strange thing.
So I'm looking at Sal's list of things that he's done that's actually like on his Wikipedia or whatever, and he actually did the Scarhead record.
Yeah.
So wherever Scarhead is signed to now, they actually hit me up last 2 years ago about potentially doing a record for Scarhead, but I was just too busy at the time to even consider the option. But that's just interesting. Side note, The Assistant, tying back to The Assistant, the old singer of my old band, which is the reason why I met Gary, was obsessed with The Assistant. This girl named Lily.
Okay. Which band was that?
It was called Breath of Silence, and I was also in a band with her before that for like a short moment called Schlatter, and
Schlatter sounds very familiar.
We were in Staten Island and playing in that group of bands that would play.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So then we left Schlatter and went to Breath of Silence. That's how I met Gary, because I started going on this thing called the hardcorewebsite.net, and we played Castle Heights once and played with them in various places in like upstate New York, etc. But Lily was beyond obsessed with The Assistant. Literally every time we played a show, she was wearing your shirt.
Wow, for real?
Yes.
Len, it seems like you just have a whole bunch of friends that really like
what you do.
The bands I've been in. This is really strange. I didn't expect this at all.
Well, I don't just listen to hardcore. Like, I in fact, somebody posted yesterday, hey, name me the best hardcore records that have come out in 2020, and I was like, none, because like there just are so few that really like come out these days. And it's like metal or it's punk. It's not really actually hardcore anymore.
That's funny you say that, because I was thinking the same thing. Like, so I saw a similar post and I was like, I don't even know what came out. Like,
right.
Maybe a handful of like 7 inches here and there or something, but like for the most part, like most of the stuff that I listened to lately was metal.
Honestly, the most stuff I listen to right now is like 80s anthem rock and like 90s just alt rock / grunge / whatever else that like I'm enjoying, like Smashing Pumpkins, etc. from the 90s, and I barely ever listen to anything that would be remotely considered contemporary at this point, short of things I'm recording. So like, for me, it's like
I think I'm mostly listening to quarantine covers lately. You know?
So here's a hot take. I fucking hate quarantine covers. I hate them. Like, it never sounds good. Like, see, I don't like any of them.
I've heard some that are terrible, and I've heard some that are pretty damn good, and I'm dying to like do a couple.
See, I was involved with the mixing portion on one that included what is his name? Skateboarder Tony Hawk. When Tony Hawk came out, there's this group called the NPCs, and they do like ska covers of all kinds of stuff. But this was like 56 or 60 people, like all mailed in all their like horns or, guitars, bass, drums, whatever, and like vocals. And like I had this session that was 128 tracks. I maxed Pro Tools out. Like Pro Tools was like, hey bro, you got no more tracks. You need to start consolidating some of this shit and deleting. So,
that's just crazy.
I worked on it. It's got like 60,000 views on YouTube and Facebook, etc. Yeah, like for all intents and purposes, for the level of what it is, it was a hit. It was fun. I enjoy it, but overall, like I've seen some of the ones for like Death, and it's not that it doesn't, like it's not good, or like the Anthrax ones. I think the Anthrax ones sound like absolute dog shit.
You think so? I mean, they're not. Listen, just quality-wise, they're not the best, but it's cool to see them doing other stuff.
Yeah, I just saw one from Lamb of God, and I was just like, nah, bro, I'm good without it.
Have you watched the Sepultura ones?
No, but Eloy Casagrande
published.
is fucking insane.
Oh, that dude.
Tom, have you ever seen him play drums?
Yes.
My man can play some goddamn drums.
That dude's a fucking animal.
But I
then
don't.
He's got stuff too. Like if you look at his YouTube channel, he's got like himself playing Phil Collins and shit.
See,
I'm just like, whoa, this is insane. Because I'm used to the dude just bashing.
Yeah.
Right.
But like he sounds so good playing the Sepultura shit. But I mean, he's like trying to put his fucking hand through the drum.
Yeah.
Dude hits so hard.
So me, Travis, and Marty are from Iron Price. They're a band from like the Baltimore area. We've been talking about covering Easy Lover, and Travis learned all the drums, and Marty's learned pretty much the entire bass line. I have learned like 6 notes, and I go, I don't even want to do this anymore because like I hate the videos. I hate them.
I just want to say you guys are blowing my mind here because I didn't even know that this was like a thing that existed.
Oh, big time.
Oh no, it exists
all over the place.
Quarantine cut. Is it just like everybody
just
in their bedroom like playing and then they?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: the Sepultura ones, they're doing Sepultura songs, but a lot of times they'll have other people doing it with them. Like they did one song with Dave Ellefson from Megadeth. They had Phil Ryan from Sacred Reich, and they've had Alex Skolnick and all these other people, Devin Townsend. But then you have just random people, like Charlie Benante from Anthrax has done a bunch with like different people. Like he's doing like YYZ by Rush with like the bass player from Suicidal and like Alex Skolnick from Testament. But then there's other ones with different people playing, where he's playing drums, and some of them he's even playing guitar on or playing piano on or something. But then you just have a bunch of other random people just doing cover songs and stuff. So like it's all over the place. Like Len and I talked about doing a Faith No More song, and then for various reasons it just didn't come through, which I still want to do it somehow.
I mean, would I do one? Sure. I would do,
and I don't even care about
I'm just a hater. I'm just a hater.
Oh, actually, Gary, this actually brings up a strong point.
What's that?
Len might be the bigger hater here because he is hating on the quarantine videos.
Maybe. That brings the stock up, buddy. That puts you on the leaderboard right now.
I'm like Bitcoin out here, baby. I'm just skyrocketing.
We got peanut butter. We got quarantine covers. What else?
Yo, so all right, I'm gonna run off a list of things that I don't fuck with at all, and you can tell me how big a hater I am. So number one,
I would say for each one that you do, Gary should try to one.
We can do that, but then I got one for you, Tom.
Oh,
I got one. Should we lead off with Tom first?
No, I'll go first. I'll hit it. I'll hit it out the box. I don't eat, and I'm just going to list the top 5 things that I refuse to eat. Lettuce. I don't like lettuce. It's gross. Fish. Peanut butter. Pickles. And nuts of any kind. I don't like any of that stuff. Yeah.
You know what's funny? I'm with you on most of those.
Yeah, I can't do it.
There's nuts, no. Pickles, absolutely not.
Absolutely.
Like my girl bought pickles and kept them in the fridge, and I was like, "Yo, I'm going to throw you out."
I
don't want
a whole
in my
table
house.
on some pickles.
Like hate pickles.
If I go to a restaurant and I'm clear, I'm 100% clear. I don't lack the ability to express myself, especially not at a table where I'm going to be giving you my money. And I'm like, hey, your one job is to make sure that I don't get pickles. Like, while I don't like lettuce, it's easy to take off. I move on with my life. Same with tomatoes. Like, no big deal. I love tomato sauce. I love tomato products. I don't really like tomatoes themselves. But
that's funny. I'm the same way.
But pickles is a juice. It's a stain you can't remove.
It's very distinct.
The smell of them.
Oh, yeah. It makes me retch.
She's sitting next to me eating pickles. I'm like, God
like,
damn.
Yeah, all right. So
get those out of here.
So I'm going to tell you, and this goes back to Alana, my friend who asked the question. She was living in my house at the time, and she put on Alton Brown's Good Eats show, and then left the room. It turned out to be an episode about making pickles. So I'm like, how bad could this be? I'll sit here and watch him make pickles. No big deal, because I like watching Alton Brown. We're like 6 minutes into the show, and he's describing the pickles, like just like the brine and the like the seasonings and etc. And I start retching on the couch just based on the description. I'm like, I can't even watch this. I have to turn the channel because it is turning my stomach. I can't take it.
Well, it's actually funny because my friend Vanessa, I was talking about before, she used to describe pickles as cucumbers that went to hell.
I'm 100% with her on that.
Which sounds like what you saw on the. It was a documentary about pickles going to hell.
Like, I'm not really a cucumber fan, but I'm not going to run away from a cucumber. But once it's turned into a pickle, pickled peppers or pickled anything is wrong. It's wrong. I was at a store and somebody had pickled eggs. I was like, what are you doing? You just ruined one of the greatest things on the planet. It's like the most nutrient-dense source of protein. And it's really not that bad for you in the grand scheme of things, and you pickled it. What is wrong with you people?
Oh, boy.
Shit.
Oh, man. Well, let me take this haterama. Let me take this haterama in a different direction, because if we talk about food that I hate, we'll be here all night. But I'm with you on most of your choices.
Okay.
But, and as I mentioned before, I don't like bacon, which a lot of people think is an absolute sacrilege, but tough shit. And I am not down with
vegetarian.
Seafood.
What's that?
Are you vegan, vegetarian, or
I am vegan. Yeah.
Okay.
So good. So he's in with the anti-bacon stance.
By default, yeah.
So let me take this haterama in a different direction. Now that we got the food stuff out of the way, Tom.
Yo.
I want you to give me, just off the top of the head, one music hot take that people will be like, wow, like off. Give us a little bit of your hate. Or just dislike.
Okay, so a negative.
Because we've done a few on here, and it's funny because Len and I agree even on those most of the time.
Okay.
Because when I spit out my biggest hot take, he was like, "Yo, I'm totally with you," which was that the Beatles are overrated.
I am totally with you on that.
I'm glad to have you on the team.
So embrace the hate.
But what's your hot take?
Give us
the one I get into trouble about all the time that I've never had anybody agree with me on.
Okay.
The two bands that I just cannot listen to at all are Tool and Deftones.
Oof.
Can't
that
listen
one
to
hurts me.
Either band.
The Tool part doesn't bother me at all. Like I'm not on the boat with them, but I'm also not throwing rocks at the boat hoping it sinks. But Deftones, they got a couple fucking hits in there, and I love them.
It's not necessarily the rocks at the boat. It's just like, can that boat just turn around and go over there? Because I can't listen to it. It's more like that.
See, I like Tool, but I understand why people don't like Tool. Just like Rush. Like, I like Rush, but I understand people that don't.
Yes, I am. I like Rush a lot too, but when it comes on in the car, if my wife is there, I have to turn it off because she's like, I'm not listening to this. Yeah. And I totally get why she doesn't want to listen to it.
I have that problem. I have that problem with a lot of music that I listen to. Like, I put on some Dio Sabbath one time on in a band ride, and that did not go well. Glenn was especially angry at me about it.
I think it's not necessarily something that is a problem for most of the relationships that I have. I think what happens is if you're in a band with some dude who's like, yo, Deftones is the most influential record I've ever heard, I'm like, I don't know if we should be in a band together, dog. Like, I don't know if it's going to work out. Like, which has happened before. I'm just like, I don't know about this.
I've had that. Listen, with Billy Club, I have that sometimes. Like, wait, King Diamond? Like, and Glenn's like, yo, how are we in a band together? Like, yo, fuck, King Diamond is awesome. No, he's not.
You know what? I'm with Glenn. King Diamond is really not awesome. I don't know. Fight me if you need to. I don't care.
Eat my entire ass. Fuck off.
No, thank you. God no, thank you.
Fuck, King Diamond is awesome.
I think like the other sort of music I never like totally latched onto. I don't know that it's like hate. I think it's just that there's some bands that there's almost like a cult following to certain bands. And if you're like, nah, I'm just not into that, they're like kind of offended. And so like, I'd say like Infest, Negative Approach, Bane, like some of these like faster bands that I'm like, I'm not really into it. Like some of those people that like those bands are like,
they get
offended.
Mad. They get mad.
I'm like, dog, it's just not, I just don't like it. It's not for me. Like I
hate Bane. I hate it. Like, next level, I will fight you if you put it on.
Some haterade just got poured out. Damn.
Listen,
it's not a personal opinion. It's not like I don't know anybody in the band. It has nothing to do with them personally. But sure. Musically, I can't take it, and I won't take it. It's like, it's roadside records for me. I got one Bane record. So we have this thing on the upgrade when we talk about a record that, you want to just throw it out the window. For me, it's Bane. So for you, it's Deftones. For me, it's Bane.
Yeah. I think
I don't hate Bane. It's just not my thing, really. Like, but I wouldn't like run to turn them off if somebody put them on.
It's like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
I kind of agree that I do have like a nauseating reaction to it when it's on, and I know that sounds like dramatic, but I did see Bane live once, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, but it doesn't sound like that on the recording.
No, it never sounded
it's like that. It's a whole. I think Bane live is sort of like totally different experience. And
I saw them live a bunch of times. I mean, I saw them at the Wayne Firehouse in North Jersey.
I was at that show. Probably did like Thursday and Drowning Man play?
Yes.
We were
at
both
the
at
same
that
show.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I saw them a bunch of times, but that was like one of the times, and I literally was just standing there staring at them like, can you shut the fuck up?
I think at that show, while they kept trying to play, the power kept getting turned off, and they were getting angry, and I was like, wait, they're supposed to be like the posy hardcore band, and they're angry about the power. It's like, this does not look good for their
Well, it was raining really bad that day, right?
It was, yeah.
I don't remember exactly which day it was, but my another ex-girlfriend lived in Clifton, New Jersey.
Oh yeah.
So literally it was like a 10-minute drive from her house to the show, and she was a huge Thursday fan. So it was like, yo, Thursday's playing like 10 minutes from here. You want to go? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. And we get there, and she's like, Bane's playing? I was like, yeah, I didn't tell you that. And she's like, this is the worst show. She was like, why couldn't we just come later? And I was like, because if we came any later, we weren't getting in.
Oh.
Because it was a pretty packed show.
It was.
So, but yeah, I can't do it.
I'd say the other band that I sort of have like an adverse reaction to, and this isn't in the hardcore realm of things, but got played often in the van on tours throughout the years, is Weezer.
Really? I can't get down with Weezer either.
I guess I'm a man alone on that island out there. The first 2 records are great. Anything after that, I'm out 100%.
I'm not down.
Yeah.
At all.
The voice just kills me.
Yeah. I can't get down. Like, I think it was only made worse by the fact that a lot of dudes are all down with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I know I've been in places and like dudes are singing along with it, and I'm just like,
Well, don't get in my fucking car, bud. Stay out of my car.
I've struggled through many a drives on tour while bandmates have been like, yo, let's listen to the Blue album again. And I'm like, oh, God, no.
You're like, no, please. I quit. I'm going. I'm out of here.
Why did I book this tour?
Yeah. I'm with you. I can't get down with that.
And I think I'll just do one last one just because I don't want people to be like, yo, remember that episode where Tom just talked shit about a bunch of bands on that podcast? I had never listened to AFI before, but I had seen like, this was like early 2000s, like there were just dudes like repping AFI hard, like t-shirts, sweatshirts, sweatpants. Like Len was one of those guys.
Len is one of those.
And I'm like, I'm getting tattooed one day, and the guy tattooing me is wearing an AFI shirt and an AFI hat.
Okay, that's overboard.
And there's music playing in the background. And after listening to about like 10 minutes of it, I'm like, hey, Brody, like, who is this? And he's like, AFI? I was just like, and so that was the first time I ever heard them. And I was like, this is that band that everybody's like buying like full on like
the full gear.
Yeah, like it sounded very like lukewarm to me. You know, it was very sort of like middle of the road, very safe,
right?
But kind of vanilla. You know, like it didn't really do much for me. And I was sort of like, why is this so popular? You know,
because it's accessible. That's why.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, and that was the most AFI I ever took in. I never really.
So for me, it's 2 records. I really like 2 records of theirs. They're old like super punk stuff. I'm like, but the spot where they hit the like lagwagony like pseudo like fast punk thing.
What was that? Black Sails?
Black Sails, and the one before it, shut your eyes and open your eyes and shut your mouth or whatever. Those 2 records. Shut your mouth
and open your eyes. I think.
Yeah. So like those 2 records are the 2 records I like from them, and I do not like anything else they ever did. I can't defend it, but I did have an AFI shirt because it was that moment in time. So We're talking like 99 through like 2002, 2003.
And that's when I remember seeing that, like when it was like in full swing, was around that time.
And then after that, I'm out. Like they put out an EP that has like 1 really good song on it, and then the rest of it's throwaway music, and I feel like the rest of their career is throwaway music. So, you know, I basically have thrown them away.
It's weird because I've read like interviews with the singer, I forget his name. Davey. And like seems like a cool dude. Seems like he's down with a lot of the same things that like I'm down with, you know, and I'm like, okay, like seems like a cool dude. I wish I liked his band because like seems like a nice guy, you know.
Again, personal opinion, music opinion. Totally different. Like I have no personal opinion on these people, but musically it's trash outside of those 2 records. Not into it.
I was like I had heard them but was never into them at all, and then like I heard when they started getting real popular and you know, didn't really move me one way or the other. Don't hate it, don't love it. Just
so what do you love, Tom? What are you rocking these days?
Well,
what am I rocking these days?
You know what? Here's one for you. Give us one that you like that a lot of people don't.
A band that I like that. Well, okay,
or just that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of.
I'll explain some of my not so popular takes, maybe.
Perfect.
But like stuff that I like that people are like, no way. Youth of Today. Are you familiar with their catalog?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Last 3 songs, the Disengage release.
Right.
I think that's their best material.
I couldn't really argue you on that.
Really?
No,
yeah. Len, you're the first one.
I wouldn't argue, but I'm like I said before, I came from metal, so like of course people are gonna be like, oh, he's a fucking metal guy. But yeah, I wouldn't fight you on that.
Okay, all right. I will say, let me think about this. What are some other? I'm trying to think of like what are the other takes that like I'm like, hey, I like this and nobody else does. Oh, you know what? There seems to be a backlash to, but I'm still totally on board.
What's that?
Refused. Shape of Punk to Come.
Okay.
You know what? I love that record, but that was
still on board.
That was my introduction to Refused. I had not heard them when they were like an actual hardcore band.
Yeah, when they were like a chugga straightforward hardcore. Yeah.
So when they did that, like I heard that song and I was like, that record, but specifically the released single, I was like, I like this. And then I bought the record and I was like, I like the record. I'm not going to tell you that it's like something I go to put on all the time, but I don't dislike it.
So I saw them with Snapcase at the Wayne Firehouse when they were on tour with Snapcase, and
I was there.
That was when the first album was out, right?
Yep.
And they were really bad. Like I was just like, oh, here's this Swedish band, they're terrible. Oh my god. And Fanning the Flames came out, and I was like, okay, the band got a lot. They seem to up their game. Shape of Punk to Come came out, and I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. And that might have
met the right producer.
I mean, also in terms of like the songwriting and stuff, it definitely was probably more in my ballpark for like the stuff that I'm into or the stuff that I was into at the time, and I was just like, holy shit, this record's amazing. And when it came out, like they broke up like pretty soon after.
Right.
I remember I was supposed to see them at the Melody Bar, and they broke up like 2 days before, and so they didn't come to the show. But I remember when that was out, that was a universally liked album. Like, I remember like kids from like every sort of like subgenre of hardcore were all like, getting down with that.
Yep.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I think it's because Refused came back and sort of like like their new stuff's probably I'm kind of gonna take a pass on it, but like
I'm not into it, but
I'm not into it, but like I don't know if that like tarnished things or whatever, but like I still think Shape of Punk to Come is like a banger, man. I'm into it.
It definitely has its moments, and I don't mind when it comes on random.
Cool.
But it's not something I go to reach for like often.
Gotcha.
I have no opinion because honestly, I never really gave it like I never really listened to it that much. Like yeah, everybody knows New Noise or whatever, but like beyond that, like I don't think a lot of people know anything else.
I think like at this point, if like a new generation of kids are starting to come in, it's probably not on their radar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. I just never really listened to it. Like I heard it, I was like, it's okay, but like I never really went back to it.
Gotcha.
So I got a new question for you. I see those basses and guitars behind you.
Oh, yeah.
What are your what's your favorite brand to play?
I am currently playing 2 Gibson SGs, and I am probably gonna play SGs for the rest of my life because they don't weigh a lot, and I'm kind of lazy. So like having a light guitar is ideal. For bass, my wife, when we got engaged, we have a very egalitarian relationship, I guess I would say. And when we got engaged, we talked about getting engaged in a very like pragmatic way. It was sort of like, well, we've been together for this long. Seems like, and then we were having this very like pragmatic discussion. And I was like, so would you like me to buy you a ring? And she's like, yes. And she's like, would you like me to buy you a ring? And I'm like, no. And she's like, do you want something else? And I'm like, come to think of it, I do want a deluxe American jazz bass. You think we could pull that off? And she's like, yeah, I think so. So I have a Fender Deluxe jazz bass that my wife bought me as my engagement gift.
Nice.
And that's like the bass that was like the bass I had my eye on since I started to play bass. So it's like,
okay,
it's my bass.
That's cool.
And what amps are you playing these days?
I just bought a Splon Pro Stock.
So it's like really, a hot rodded Marshall.
Yeah. It's a really strange thing. There's a friend of mine, his name is Guy, and he plays in a bunch of bands down at the shore. And he's like one of those gear people that's just always on Craigslist, like seeing like oh, is there anything that I can buy and flip? Like he's like and he's also like just always on like the search for like tones, like, and he went to some old glam rock dude in Staten Island who just wanted to like get amps out of his basement. And the guy had 2 Splon half stacks and a EVH. And the guy was like, I don't know, $450 a head, $250 a cab.
Whoa! And I'm like, I'll just take it all with me, right?
And guy
just roll up that U-Haul.
Guy just looked and said, I will take them all. And just rolled them out to his car. So
that would be the right move in that situation.
Yeah. So when he got back with all that stuff, he posted a picture online about this haul that he just got, and I immediately wrote to him because the Splon, I played a Splon quick rod at a show once. I was in this band called Black Kites.
I love Black Kites.
Oh, for real? Thank you.
Yes.
So
it had just the right attitude for me to enjoy it.
Really?
Yeah.
That is very nice of you to say. Wow. I thought we were. I was always trying to find that crowd that we appealed to, and just never really found them. And all along, it was you.
I am fat enough to be a crowd.
We had played a Black Kites show, and the band that played before us, like the kid had just bought a Splon, like a new Splon, and he's like, "Yo, I just bought this amp, and I want to hear what it sounds like. Do you mind playing through it?" And I was like, "Okay." And I played through it, and I was like, this kid spent $2,200 on this amp, and like it's totally worth it. Like I've played like $2,000 amps and been like, who the hell would pay $2,000 for it? The Splon was the only amp where I was like, yeah, I can kind of see how somebody would pay that much for it. So when Guy posted it, I was like, yo, I want that amp. How much you want to sell it for? And he was like, $550. I was like, all right, cool.
Is that Guy Poloni?
Wow. Guy Poloni, yeah.
Okay. I think I bought something from Guy.
Guy is a great person.
So Guy sold me a Soldano Hot Rod 100 from.
What?
Yeah, bro.
Ooh.
We met up in Trenton. We just met up one day, and I just handed him cash, and I bought it. I've sold it. I sold it to some fucking dumb. I know.
Why?
It was the least used head I had because if you are not good at picking, it will not cover your tracks. Like, you play a 5150 or a Mesa.
There's some mush in there to cover you up.
There's some mush, and it blends out the nonsense in your bad playing.
It's too clean.
There are 3 amps that I know of that you cannot get away with any bullshit, and it's a VHT Pitbull, It's a Soldano of any sort and an actual 800. Those 3 amps will not save you if you fuck up, because there's just not enough gain in there.
The Splon is like that too.
Yeah, I would assume. I've never played one, but Gary, you were at the studio. You played through my hand. I have a handmade 2204 clone, like literally point to point on a pin board clone of a 2204. Like, it is, for all intents and purposes, a real 800. It will not save you from yourself if you're playing it. And same with my Pitbull, same with that Soldano I had.
Yeah, Soldanos are like that too.
I did use it a lot because it really made me feel naked. And like 90% of the bands of people that came in weren't good enough to play through it. So Iron Price did use it on one of the releases we worked on together, but Matt plays riffs that are at just the right pace that he can nail the parts perfectly. So it didn't like cause him to play in a way, or it to sound in a way that it was bad. But most of the people that tried to use it were like, yeah, this thing doesn't sound good. I'm like, no, this thing sounds perfect, but it's not good for you. So I needed money for building the studio, and I was like, well, I have this $2,000. I could get $2,000 like that if I put it on fucking Reverb. So I put it on Reverb. It was up for less than 3 hours.
Wow.
And it was sold. So I'm packing it, and I had never turned it over. I turn it over while I'm packing it, and Black Oak, Arkansas is spray painted on it. So that Black Betty band used to own amp, and I'm like, I could have sold this for so much more than I sold.
Oh, it's so wild.
It had the Warren Haynes mod built into it. Like, I mean, it was a fucking killer amp, and I'm mad at myself for selling it, and I'm mad at Guy for selling it to me for what he sold it to me for, because it was significantly less than he should have gotten. And I got more than I bought it from him on, but I should have just kept the damn thing.
That's the thing, though. Guy just wants to spread the love, man. Yeah. Like, Guy is not trying to make a killing off of
shout out to Guy.
Yeah, Guy, if you're listening, shout out.
But I, as you may have noticed, I have an assload of amps at my studio, and I'm constantly looking for new stuff. So I was trolling Craigslist, but I think he trolls the North Jersey Craigslist and Central Jersey.
Yes.
I do Central Jersey, the Shore, and South Jersey. Okay. So on South Jersey, I actually saw that there was a Friedman amp on there. They go for like $3,700 brand new.
Yeah.
Lady wanted $1,300 for it. I sent her a message, and I was like, hey, I'll give you 12. And she was like, can you meet me today? And I was like, I can meet you anytime you're ready. Down there, and I was like, here's your money. Awesome. And I mean, it came in a box. I mean, it was like literally brand new.
Wow.
So I got away from her as fast as I could once I made sure that it was the right amp in the box. I like opened it, looking in it, and I'm like, nope, that's a Friedman. It really is a Friedman. And honestly, since I got it back to the studio, only one project hasn't been tracked through it. It's that good an amp.
Oh, wow.
So, and like I had to reach out to Dave from Friedman Amps to get like some information, and he was super helpful. Like, I just sent it into the regular info, and he is the one that actually wrote me back. Dave Friedman himself. So I'm like, wow, this is fucking awesome.
Well, it's weird. It's like when I got into playing into hardcore bands, tube amps, nobody really cared if it was a tube amp or not. And the popular amp in like 1995 or so was this Ampeg VH140.
Yep, the VH140.
And so that's the first amp that I ever owned. Was the VH140, and I played it on a bunch of releases. Half of the you and I releases, and then towards like the middle of you and I, we played with I forget who we played with, but somebody had a Sovtech, and I forget who, and it sounded awesome.
Well,
and I went to the store.
Those MIGs are like crazy.
So the store by my house had just gotten Sovtechs in brand new. It was like 1998 at that, 1998 at that point, and they had just gotten them in like brand new, and it was like $300 for a MiG 60. Which is like an amp now. It goes for like 8 or something.
Yeah, the return on investment is huge.
Yeah, so I bought this like Sovtech MiG, and it doesn't have nearly as much gain as a VH1 440, and I kind of went through that whole thing where I'm like, oh, I could hear all the notes I'm playing. This is weird, like it definitely had that problem. And but I used it because we were playing like a noisier style or whatever. By the time that the assistant started, that's sort of like when I was really getting into like I think the environment at that point was like Burnt by the Sun, Dillinger Escape Plan, kind of like this really like tech sort of like lots of scales and shit.
Right.
And I was like, my Sovtech is not going to pull this off, and that's when I went to the 5150.
Which everybody has touched a 5150 at some point.
And I played a 5150 for years. I think
I still own 2 of them.
I remember buying that thing, turning the gain on the red channel up to 10, and just being like,
"There it is."
Cool. Like I can mess up and it doesn't matter because it's like it.
It's all just pushed in there.
So stoked. And like when I started playing in Black Kites, I like tried to do the JCM with a tube screamer sort of thing in front of it to try and like clean things up a little bit. And then I stopped playing guitar for a long time after that. So just kind of when hundreds started to play, that's when I started to get back into guitar.
I honestly haven't really played guitar all year, but I did have a question for you. And this is going back to you saying that you grew up around Toms River, and something is just telling me that and how long it would take you to get to the beach from your house. Did you ever throw a show? Did you have a house that had like a shed, a huge shed in the backyard, and you threw shows in it?
No, that they started doing shows there, I want to say about 2005.
Okay.
It was this band called One Win Choice. They were like a punk band, and they did shows there. It was like them, and there was another band called Heartfelt Discord from there that would play there a lot. Those shows were pretty cool. The shed it had like rugs where the band played, but the rest of it was grass and sort of like unfinished. So if people started to dance, it was just dust and dirt all over the place
and mud.
It was kind of
gross. My old band, My Turn to Win, played there one day with
I saw My Turn to Win there. I'm sorry, I said I saw my Turn to Win there.
Yeah, we were playing with Geert. But it was when Geert was there all by himself from Shialud doing like the acoustic thing. And we had no business being on that show necessarily, but somebody was like, hey, do you guys want to come play this show? So we drove down there, and then I left and went to fucking Seaside and got pizza at Maruca's because it was important to me.
Who else was in My Turn to Win?
It was me, Jess Goldie, and then like Justin, who was in Set to Flames / whatever the original name of that band from New York City was.
Oh, I forgot their original name.
Mark was probably playing drums for us. Mark's wife now is Brooke from Delaware, who does the stickers. So she's like, I can't remember what the name of her sticker company.
Was my Turn to Win, had they been a band for a long time before that?
Yeah. Yep.
So I want to say, all right, I've been in way too many bands, so at one point I was in a band called This Ship Will Sink,
okay.
and we played at this place called the Bruce House, which was in South Jersey. And I want to say we played with My Turn to Win.
You probably did. I wasn't in the band at that point.
Okay. It was like 2003. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't join My Turn to Win until 2005.
Okay. I definitely saw that My Turn to Win show at the Shed, though.
Yeah, because I was in My Turn to Win from 05, maybe 06, until that I quit in 11 to do Bottom Feeder and Hammerhead at the same time. And there's just two bands that came and went in the night. But the funny thing is, I end up in bands most of the time by recording a band, and then I like the music, and somebody quits, and they're like, "Well, you already know the songs," because what happens is, I get involved in the record if it's something more than a song or two, and we take a while to get it done. I get so involved in it that I memorize the music, and then it's I'm just oh yeah, I could play that, or I'll be sitting there noodling at my desk, and I'll write something over top of what they're already playing, and it's hey, you already know the song. Do you want to play? We need somebody to fill. We need somebody to fill in, and I go fill in, and they're like, "The guy's quitting. Do you want to just do it?" I'm like, fuck it, I'll do it. It's fine. Let's do it. And that's how I ended up in at least 3 or 4 bands over the last couple years.
I mean, I feel like that says something about your personality that many people are willing to be like, "Hey, Len's the dude."
I can be a total asshole though, and I know it. So it's a crapshoot. But overall, I think I'm reasonable, even while being an asshole.
I mean, that's another thing that all three of us share, because we've all been in a lot of fucking bands.
Yeah, I had too many.
I cut down a lot later on, but
actually, Gary,
I was in my peak and was quite the slut.
Do you think you can do a chronology of all of your bands for us? Because I'm familiar.
I could, but it would probably take a whole episode. I mean, I'll give you the short version.
Sure.
I had a couple of bands when I first started playing. I was in one band that was more of a Faith No More kind of rock band that went through a few different names, and then I started playing. I played in my first hardcore band was called Antagonize, not the Antagonize that's around now with I think the singer from Bane. We only played 2 shows. Funny side story. Our first show was also Setback's first show with Glenn from Billy Club.
Okay. And
I still argue with him about it because they had kicked out their singer, so they didn't have a singer, but somehow we went on before them. I still hold a grudge, over 25 years later now, probably 27 years, I think. I'm still pissed off about it. And then after that, I wasn't playing in bands for a while. Then I started playing in the band Distance with Rafe, who was on New York's Hardest.
Yeah, the comp.
They kicked me out at the beginning of '99, and then the band kind of died shortly after that. I took a little break, and then I started playing with 5 Minute Major, and I played with them for a while. And then I was talking to Billy Club, but at the time, 5 Minute Major kind of had a deal where if we could write a record, we could go tour Europe. And I was like, well, I'm trying to do that. But then things weren't working out within the band, people having issues with each other. And you talk about being, band dad.
Band dad.
I was the middle guy. People aren't talking to each other, so everything has to go through me.
Oh, no, the child that needs to talk between the divorced parents.
So I was the middle guy, and I just didn't want to be the middle guy anymore. So, it's okay, practice is booked. Okay, well, you tell him because I don't talk to him. And I'm just okay.
Yeah.
And it just got to be a headache after a while. And that plus people were flaking out. So I started to realize, this Europe thing isn't happening with this band. So, I was still on good terms with everybody. I was just yo, I'm going to do I'm going to do Billy Club. I'll do both bands and then figure it out. And then like shortly after that, the band fizzled out because just like being band dad, when you're the motivator and you're not motivating anymore, it drops out.
It's done. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what happened. So I joined Billy Club. I was in a lot of this time, I was doing fill-in spots here and there for a bunch of different bands. Like, I was filling in for a band called State of Disgrace at one point. I actually joined Mickey's crew, which I always refer to as my side band. Because it was all, we were all friends, so like we were all hanging out anyway. So I was doing Billy Club and Mickey's crew, but I was doing side stuff. Like I filled in for a lot of different bands. I filled in for Step Too Far one time. I filled in for Full Blown Chaos one time. I did a bunch of shows with State of Disgrace, which was Rich, who we've had on the podcast before, who's a teacher in the city. It's filling in a couple of different things here and there, but Billy Club was always my main thing. And especially once, I joined and we started getting things together and things started moving, because then eventually we started booking Puerto Rico. We went to Europe. We went to, eventually we went to Japan. So Billy Club always was my number one.
That's the priority.
Yeah. And then Billy Club stopped for a while because of some issues. And then Billy Club came back. I was playing in another band that was more of a metal, like a metal band in that time in between. But then that fell apart eventually. And then Billy Club started talking and decided to come back and play one show, and then that turned into more shows, and that's really been that's been my main focus. Like Mickey's crew will pop up here and there from time to time, but Billy Club has always been the number one. So that's really where I'm at now. And I just, I used to do the fill-ins all the time, and then I didn't really have time with it, especially as my kids got older, because then it's not just like, come home, put them to bed. Now it's like Little League and boys, as they got older, it's Little League and Boy Scouts and this and that. And all of a sudden it's not, it's not so easy.
Yeah.
And then they get to be teenagers and then they can't stand to be around you anyway. Which is where we're at now. So, but yeah, I mean, Billy Club, and now with COVID, nobody's doing anything. But, before that, we were playing shows. We were a little more selective because of the time involved and everything. Like I said, we're spread out more, so it's not easy for us to practice. And, that plus kids being older and having other responsibilities, because now, we're all in our mid-40s. So, like, dude owns a house or dude's married and, has kids, this, that. Like, we've all got these other responsibilities, so it's not as easy.
I think that it used to be sort of like not very common at all to see somebody in their 40s like still playing in like a band, and it I don't know if it's just like the generation that like I'm in, but like I am encountering more and more people that are kind of like around our age group that are still just sort of like, no, I'm still going to make this work, Yeah,
I think, it gets tougher, like I said, as you get older, because you got other responsibilities. People have jobs. And I think one of the things for us in Billy Club was that, like you mentioned about being a weekend warrior type of band, we've never done a U.S. tour, period. Not a week. Not 10 days, like other than weekends. That's all we have ever done, because we just we've never had much interest in it. Like, we don't want to go bang it out in the van and play on a Tuesday night to 10 people. Like, the only touring...
Dude, you're not living until you played for 10 people on a Tuesday night in the middle of Iowa.
Well, I also think...
feel like we did enough of that, in the earlier days, and like we're not... we're not really, we don't feel like doing it, and we've been able to get away with not doing it. So
it's
fuck your system.
Do you think that there's something about like the aura of being like an old New York hardcore band. That's sort of like people in Japan and people in Europe are like, oh, we want to bring this band here because like they're like an older New York hardcore band. And there's like an authenticity to that, and we
definitely.
Yeah, because it's like I live just outside of Albany, and there's this town right over here called Troy.
Yeah.
And Troy.
I know Troy very well. I know Troy from way back when because I had friends that used to go to RPI.
So Troy has a bunch of like old hardcore bands.
Yeah.
That haven't done any like, US touring per se.
Right.
But like I'll talk to my friends in France and they'll be like, You live in Albany? Do you know this band called Wartime Manor? And I'm like, how you live in France? How do you know about this band? Like they've never even toured the United States. Like, but like it seems like there's overseas there's like this sort of like a love for kind of like that older kind of hardcore stuff,
there definitely is, because I can tell you, well, first of all, we're lucky because like I said, the band, next year is going to be 20 years since I joined the band and 25 years since the band started. And we're lucky. Yeah, we took a break for a couple of years, but not a lot of bands have a run like that. And it's partly just because of the chemistry that we have individually and together. But also, shit happens, and we've been lucky to a point because a lot of times bands break up, and it's because something happens to one guy, loses his job or something, has to move to another state or whatever. There's so many different factors because when you got 4 or 5 guys in a band, it's only, you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we've been very lucky that we've been able to do this over time with all the different things that go on. Like I said, with jobs changing and people having kids and families and getting married and getting divorced and, just the life stuff. So we've been very lucky with that. But also, it really does, there is really something to that because like when we went to Japan, it was tremendous, and they also do their homework over there. I think a lot of, like, not everybody in the States, but I think a lot of kids are jaded and just don't really care about the history of stuff. But like we go to Japan and I've got kids asking me about my old bands, like about Distance, which like we only put out a couple of demos and those songs on New York's Hardest 3. Like it's not like we ever put out a record. It's not like we ever played a lot of shows.
Yeah.
But yet some kid tells me, yeah, I bought the demo in Tokyo just because I saw that it was produced by Mike DeJean. And then I loved it, and they're talking to me about the songs, and like they love this song, and I'm like, this is so crazy. I'm on the other side of the world talking to a kid about a demo that maybe we made 100 cassettes.
That's a trip, That's a total trip.
Yeah, and it was just, and listen, I always say like I feel lucky because I'm not like I always talk on here about how I'm diehard atheist, but like music to me is like the closest thing to religion because it's like you're giving a piece of you're putting it out there for everybody to shit on or to love or whatever. And how many people do we know that have passed on that like they left music with us? You know what I mean? Because I always think about like guys like Rabies, because I used to know Rabies and I used to hang out and go to Warzone shows and stuff, and he was always super cool to me, and like he's been gone a long time, but you always hear his music.
Almost 24 years at this point.
Yeah, and a lot of other people too.
There are kids coming to shows that weren't even a thought, a glimmer in someone's eye, and he's been gone well longer than that. Yeah,
and you think about guys like that. You think about guys like Saab from Marauder, and like their music is still here. That's what they left for the rest of us.
Marauder would be nothing without his riffs. Those riffs are some of the toughest fucking riffs I've ever heard in my entire life.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that there's also sort of like because I've had a similar experience where I've been in like Germany and someone's walked up to me and been like, hey, like I picked this up last week, and it'd be like some like thing I played on when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I think with hardcore, you know, we don't look at our like your friends are in bands and you're in a band, and like nobody looks at people in bands as like celebrities. You know what I mean? Like I don't think of anybody. Like I definitely think of some people as influential, but I don't look at them as the way that I looked at, like, say, like we were talking about before, like Sebastian Bach of Skid Row on MTV.
Right.
Like like I, would have no problem like walking up to somebody at a show of a band that I liked and being like, hey, what's up? Like, your band was good. I want to talk about it. And I think like the sort of like idea of like having somebody invest that kind of time into tracking down stuff that you played on, it kind of goes against that whole like, no, I'm not some guy that like people should care about. I just wrote this music because I wanted to. And sort of getting in the mindset of like, oh, people are trying to track that down and they want to hear it, and they'll know about this release that you played on because Mike DeJorn recorded it. Like, that is hard to like get into that headspace where you're like, oh yeah, somebody did that and that makes perfect sense to me. But it still does not crazy. Make perfect sense to me.
Well, like, I'll tell you the biggest mind blower, and I've talked about it on here before. The biggest mind blower was when we went to Japan, 2009. The first night they took us out to a restaurant, and it ended up kind of being a surprise party for us. We didn't know. We thought we were just going out to eat, and then suddenly we walk into the back room of a restaurant, and there's like 20 Japanese kids there all waiting for us. And we look around the room, and the shirts they're wearing are like everybody gets hurt, stout, irate, and we're just like, wow, like these guys all like our shit, like, and our friends.
And your friends,
like,
yeah.
Like our group of people. And like to us, listen, like a couple weeks ago, I went to Phil Irate's wedding. And like, we all hang out together. We all talk. We text each other. We'll get together from time to time. Obviously less now with COVID, this stupid shit. But to us, it's just like we're a group of friends.
Yeah.
But like we go across the world, and like they know all of our music and have our shirts, and like are asking us about this band and that band, and it's so wild.
That's just shit I'll never be able to wrap my head around,
Yeah. It's so wild to me because listen, like what we were talking about, like when you're a young kid and like you're just starting to play. Like, I never thought I'd go to Japan.
Oh no, yeah, totally.
I never thought I'd go to Europe. I never thought I'd have people asking me to sign shit or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like all of it's crazy. But we're real lucky to have stuff like that, and it's just and part of it, not to pat myself on the back, but like part of it also is that we did a lot of work to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, it's like meeting halfway. We do a lot of that work, but then a lot of those other people are doing the work to find out about us too, which is really cool.
See, one of the moments that I had that blew my mind, and this is more from an engineering standpoint, when Descent, we needed a new drummer, and we had tried out like 15 people, and none of it was working. And then this kid was suggested to us, and we were like, all right, whatever. Bring him in. And he comes in, and he's like, he knew the guitar player at the band. And then, like, I had done some research, and he had some videos on YouTube. And I didn't recognize the kid at all. I never seen him before in my life, or so I thought. And he walks in, and we're working. And then I was like, all right, well, dude, it was really nice to meet you. And he turns to me, he's like, buddy, you met me 10 years ago. And I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, the first band I was ever in recorded with you. You just don't remember me. And I'm like, holy shit. I don't. And like, he was like, I definitely remember you. And like, just the regeneration of people staying in or keeping in the scene and allowing you to either rediscover them or understand that you influenced somebody in some way and they're still here or coming back. It's just mind-blowing sometimes.
So we had the crazy moment too, because we took 6 years off, you know, and we came back and we started playing again, and we started getting kids in this old guy moment. We started getting kids that were like, yo, I never got to see you back then because I was too young. So now I finally got to see you, and I'm just like, oh, God damn, I'm old. Yeah. You know? Like, you were too young to see me back then. It's like, oh, yeah, now I'm old enough. I'm like, God damn it.
Do you find that's an issue, Tom? Like, when you're out playing shows and you're just looking around the room and you're like, so I could be your father. I could be all of your fathers.
So I think that the sort of like older folks that I meet probably kind of gravitate more into like the heavier hardcore scene, and sort of like the screamier DIY stuff that I kind of like exist in is definitely like a younger scene, and I think that the sort of feeling that I get is like, I'm just thankful that these kids let us play with them, because like it would be very easy for them to look at us and be like, get out of here, old man. Like, you know, like, so I'm just like super thankful that like we get asked to play shows with like some of these like newer, like Masonera and Frail Body and Crowning, and like some of these like newer kind of like bands that are just taking it up a notch, that I'm just super impressed with, and they're not looking at us as like, oh, look at these old guys still trying to do this. Like they're actually like nice to us, and they like want us to play with them and stuff. And but yeah, I mean, there's definitely people that are 20 years younger than me, and are just like, oh yeah, you were in that band that was around when I was like 5. You know, like they just like, and I'm like, fuck. Yeah, I remember someone saying to me that like they wanted to buy the amp from like the year that they were made, and I think they said, yeah, I want to get a 1993, and I was like, 90? Oh, what? It was just, you know, like that's like some weird shit to me to hear somebody say they were born in 1993. You know, I'm just like, wow.
So I was talking earlier with Matt from Iron Price, and we were talking about the Queen's Gambit. I don't know if have either of you watched it?
I have not watched it, but
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Eventually.
I finished it in like 3 nights, basically, because for me, finding a few hours of time in a day when I could be editing or I could be sleeping or hanging out with London or whatever, like, it's just hard. But I watched 1 episode the first night and I was like, oh no, I like this. I'm gonna have to like make some time. So then the next couple nights I basically watched like 2 or 3 episodes a night and blasted through it. Anyway, like, I'm researching the girl who's the main character in it, and she's born in 96, and I'm just like looking at this like, you're 24. You're 24, you were born in 96. I was already like a couple years into college. I'd already been going to shows for years at this point. I mean, I was a full-fledged adult, and you were a baby. Oh man! Like, and now you're on my screen. You're making like crazy money. Where the fuck did I go wrong in my life? Like, I'm never gonna catch up. It's just so weird to me. Like,
I mean, I
don't feel. Do either of you ever feel like you're in your mid-ish 40s? Like, because I look at myself and I just feel like I'm the same guy generally that I was in my 20s. But
that's why I laugh, because I don't really feel that way, but then I have those moments.
Mm-hmm.
Like early on, like years ago, I had one of those moments when I have 2 nieces that are in their 20s now, But when they were teenagers, at one point, one of them came to me and was like, "Oh, one of my friends at school is a huge fan of your band. She can't wait until she's old enough to go see you." And I'm like, "Fuck,
damn it!
Like that's not cool."
Yeah.
And now it's weirder because now my kids are teenagers, but like, my kids are just not like, they think it's cool that they can watch me on YouTube, but like, it's not like they're interested in my music really. Like they've heard it and they've asked me about like meanings of songs and stuff, which sometimes can be sketchy in itself. Like it's like, please don't ask me about this song. Please don't ask me about this song. But it's not like they're all like gung ho trying to get into the scene. Like they're just like, whatever.
And that's cool too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that being in like hardcore and punk from an early age has a pro and a con as being an adult right now. For me, it's like I'm at work and I can get shit done like fairly easily, and that comes from I booked a 45-day tour once and like arranged a bunch of people to like practice, and like I'm used to managing things like that and making them work, and so
knowing that things are going to go wrong and not losing your shit when it does.
Exactly. There's all these life skills that you get from being in like a DIY band, and I think like that probably is what propelled me into. I'm like a supervisor at I supervise 2 people, and my official role is like the IT director at a public library. Okay. And I can do that job fairly easily because compared to booking a 45-day tour and wrangling like 4 other people around and doing like this job is a cakewalk.
Yeah.
But because I'm into hardcore and punk, when I sit at a table to have like a supervisor's meeting with a bunch of other like grown-ass adults, I have this extreme imposter syndrome because I'm just like, my band played last night in Brooklyn. We got done. I left at midnight. I got home at 3 a.m. and now it's 8:30. I'm at this table on like 5 hours of sleep in front of like these grown-ass adults who like, did like adult stuff all weekend.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, got to get back into like adult mode now. And it's like, and that's such a bad thing to say. Is it's like, it's not like playing in a band is not adult mode. Like it's what I choose to do with my life.
It's just a totally different lifestyle.
Different
that
world,
a lot of people do not understand at all.
Yeah. So if I walked in there and was like, oh yeah, like we played at Gold Sounds last night and like, there was like, 100 people there. It was really awesome. They'd all look at me like, what? Why are you?
Why would you?
Don't get it.
Why would you waste your time doing that?
Wait, did you get paid? Like they
paid. What is that?
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's the other thing that like they think that it's a lot cooler than it really is when they find out sometimes.
Yeah,
I know plenty of people I've worked with. They're like, oh wait, you play in a band? Oh, that's so. You guys got to have like groupies and and I'm like,
what do you guys make? Like $1,000 a night?
Yeah. Like, you guys must be making pretty good money, huh? No,
we made $1,000 this year total.
Yeah. And so
you got to be racking up those royalties. Like,
schmoyalties.
Let me show you my bank statement with the like $2 and change for like.
You must be making a ton of money off. You must be making a ton of money off of Spotify plays.
Yeah, I did that once. I showed somebody one time because I actually get spreadsheets sometimes with the payouts, and I showed them what an actual payout is from like a single play on like Spotify or whatever, and they were just like, wait, what? Yeah, exactly, like 0.0000002.
And you're like,
and it's like, oh, YouTube is the big payout. It's like 0.005. Like,
yeah.
Their minds were just blown. It's like, wow, it's like that. I'm like, yeah. So like,
Yeah, not to dig into my job specifically, but I'm compliance director for a major testing company in the U.S. So, I oversee 3 different tests, and like, that's my bread and butter. That's how I pay my bills around my house. If I was expecting music, especially hardcore music, to pay the bills, I would be in the cardboard boxes in my trash, because that's about how much I could actually afford off of this. So, like, I totally get it. And that whole thing about showing up to work, like, last summer, not this past one, but the one previously, we did a trip where we played DC, South Carolina, no, Georgia, and then we played 2 other shows all the way up to like Cincinnati. Like, it was a big loop, long drives, 8-hour drives for no good reason, but we needed to get to this fest that was in Athens, Georgia. So, our focus was get 1 show going, get there, and then get 2 shows coming home to make it, 4 shows worth the weekend trip. I pulled into my driveway at 7:15, and I logged on at 9 o'clock for a meeting, and then took a shower and drove to work because I knew I wasn't going to make it on time, so I just logged into the meeting. But like, I get there, and they're like, "So how was your weekend?" And I'm like, well, I haven't slept in 4 days, and I barely showered. It was great. I had a great time. And, like, they just don't get it. They're like, why do you do this to yourself? And I'm like, why wouldn't you do this to yourself? Because at some point, when I'm old and not, like, able to go do these things, I don't think I could personally look at myself knowing that I wanted to do it and didn't.
Yeah.
So that's what keeps me going right now. I will say that with COVID slowing everything down, I'm now taking a different look at it. And maybe when COVID fucks off, if it ever fucks off for that matter, I may do a lot less. I mean, technically, I don't even have a band right now, so there's not much to do. But I might actually slow down and not do 50 dates in a year. I might only do like 10, but I don't foresee at any point that I'll stop playing music completely. Yeah, it's like, it's literally mental health for me.
The other thing for me too, and it's unique with Billy Club, because I was friends with the guys in Billy Club long before I joined the band. Like, my friendship with Martin goes back to probably 92, long before Billy Club even existed. And Glenn, I know almost as long. So for me, like, part of the fun with all those trips and stuff is because we're a bunch of jokers and we're sarcastic assholes. So you put a bunch of us, you put a bunch of us in a vehicle together, you're going to get all kinds of funny stories. Just between the ball busting and just the crazy shit that happens, Martin getting drunk and, meeting James Brown in the airport.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember those pictures.
Like that. There's so many great stories that it's just, just stories for days and days and days. And some of them are just stupid, and some of them are really funny, and some of them are just great stories. Like the James Brown thing is one of the greatest moments of my life, just because it was so completely random.
Just run into him in the airport.
Yeah, we're in the airport in Brussels. We had just finished our first tour. This was our first tour, period. We spent 2 weeks in Europe. We're about to go back home. We had a long-ass drive because the dates got switched around. Venues got closed, so we had to switch things around. Instead of ending in Brussels, in Belgium, we had to do like a long night drive from Paris all the way to Brussels to catch our flight the next morning.
Yeah.
So we're at the airport at like 7 a.m. Our flight's not until like 10 or 11 because the kid who drove us around, my friend Yuri, he would driving us around for 2 weeks, had to drop us off at the airport, maybe go catch a 2-hour nap, and then go to work.
Oh, yeah.
Because the tour was supposed to end in Belgium where he lived. So it was supposed to be like, okay, he'd get a good night rest and just go drive us to the airport. Instead, he had to drive us all night from Paris.
Wow.
So we're there, 7 a.m., and a woman that works in the airport comes up to me because she saw the guitar cases, and she's like, "You guys musicians?" I'm like, "Yeah, we just finished the tour." Small talk. She's like, "Oh, well, I'm here waiting because James Brown's going to come through these doors in a couple minutes." And I'm like, whoa, what? And James Brown walks through with some dude with a hat with a feather in it pushing all his shit on a cart. And
that's not surprising.
We say hello to him, and then suddenly he sits down and chills out talking to us for like 15 minutes.
Wow.
And I'm like, yo, we just finished our first tour. We never even ran into a bathroom that was a hole in the ground like we were always scared of, because we always heard the stories from like our friends that went to Europe. Like, hey, you're just going to have to squat over a hole. And like, we never had to do that. And we actually had good shows the whole tour. And the tour is done, and here we are, and we're chilling out, sitting with James Brown. Like, what the fuck?
I mean, I've had tours where everything goes great, and there's those special icing on the cake sort of things where you're like, this was a great tour, you know, this is awesome. I've had tours that have been total disasters, now, and at the time was probably kind of sore about them, but now, like 20-something years later, I'm like, I'm glad I did that still.
Yeah.
You know, like it's never really a tour that I'm like not glad I went on, per se, because there was probably something in there that's like now at the time might have been like completely frustrating to you, but now is like hilarious. You know what I mean? Like, so.
Oh yeah. We've
had
tours like that.
Yeah. So I mean, it's.
So let me ask you this: do you think we're gonna look back on 2020 like that?
No.
No.
Because it's been a disaster.
Absolutely not.
No.
Yeah, there's nothing redeeming in 2020 really.
Trump lost.
Trump lost, but you know, he's
we
still
all
here
lost
for the
in the process.
For the rest of the year, and they're gonna probably have to drag him out.
Did y'all see that Emily Murphy, General Services Administration, signed off on the Biden transition?
Yeah, we finally saw that earlier today.
And you know why that was going to happen, right? She was asked to testify in front of Congress, and she didn't show up, so they were gonna subpoena her.
They were gonna subpoena her. Okay.
So the House of Cards was falling quickly.
Yeah.
Fine, we'll do it. Fine.
I feel like 2020. I put everything I looked forward to just out of my mind, because it was like, okay, this is the year we're just not gonna do anything cool, you know. So like, my birthday was coming up, and I totally forgot about it. My wife kept asking me what I wanted to do for my birthday, and I was like, "Wait, it's 2020. What the fuck would I do for my birthday? There's there's no birthday. There's no Thanksgiving. Like, there's no Christmas. Like, I'm not doing any of this stuff. Like, I put it all out of my head." You know, like, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same thing with my mom last week. She's like, "Hey, where are we going to go out to eat? What are we going to do?" And I'm like, there is nothing to do. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to do anything. I just don't want to be bothered for a day. Just give me a day off. That would be wonderful.
Go out to eat? What's that?
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, we did go out to eat last Friday. We went, then, we sat, 20 feet from the next table. But, I mean, that doesn't mean that, the people around us delivering food were necessarily the safest people to be around. Like, you never know. Yeah. So, like, the whole time I'm sitting at the table with my mask on until my food hits the table and I eat. And I don't know if the mask is helping me or hurting me, but for all intents and purposes, I understand that if you're knocking down the amount of spittle coming out of your mouth and blocking spittle from coming into your mouth and nose, it's probably better than nothing. So I will gladly put this fucking mask on. I'm not feeling like somebody is like got me in the headlock and oppressing me into wearing the thing. It's a safety thing. My dad is older and not necessarily really well, and I go over there and I take care of him. So I don't want to be wandering into his house and intentionally bringing him something by ignoring all the safety measures that people have put out there.
Of course.
And these COVIDiots or Trumparians or whatever you want to fucking call them out there just like on their soapbox claiming that science isn't real, basically. I would like for the medical industry to just ignore them because they don't believe in the things that they bring to the table anyway, so they should get no services.
Right.
I don't care anymore. Like I'm not somebody that's technically out wishing people to death or anything like that, but if you don't believe in science when it comes to something as simple as putting on a mask because it might save somebody, then I don't want you to get the services because your asshole self didn't even make an attempt. You got sick and then you went to the hospital and got more people sick. Fuck you. Stay out of the hospital.
Well, I shouldn't say I'm confused, but I am frustrated that that the mask has gotten turned into a rights issue.
Yeah.
Like people being like, you can't tell me what to do, because it's such a cherry pick. You know what I mean? It's like, are there protests because people don't want to wear seatbelts right now? No, like that. The case was closed on that like years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
We all, and I remember I was listening to a debate it was a Senate debate, I forget where, and the Democratic candidate was saying like, yeah, I'm in favor of a mask mandate. The Republican candidate was a vet from Afghanistan and was like, I just can't explain to you how much our rights mean to us because you've never been to Afghanistan. And it was like, holy shit, dude, are you gonna use your military career to like debunk like science right now? Because that's really disrespectful, but like it's just like that's fucked up, like
it doesn't even make sense.
No.
But that's,
it was very it's such
so much of this doesn't make sense. What I love is the people that show up to like virus protests with guns. Like, what are you gonna shoot the virus? You're gonna shoot the fucking virus? Like, what good is the gun going to do for you?
It's true.
I don't get it.
It's really weird working in a library that serves the public and having people sort of like not on it's I guess what the word is, like we're not all agreeing on like the objective of like the objective definition of reality. So like for some people there's a global pandemic right now and you have to wear a mask and certain services aren't available to you. To other people that's not the reality. They walk in and they're like, why do I have to wear a mask? Why aren't you doing this? Why can't I do this? And you're like, have you watched the news at all? Was this like like
yeah, are you even paying attention at all?
Yeah, exactly.
It's very strange and it's frustrating to like try and serve a public that doesn't share the same like reality as you. Yeah. It's
we've talked about it and you've heard us talk about it.
Oh yeah.
It's that there are just too many fucking stupid people. They're willfully stupid.
Well, yeah. I've said it before. It's like, we're at the point where we've programmed so many of these people to be stupid, but we have the new, incarnation of it, I guess, for lack of a better word, where not only are they stupid, they revel in being stupid, and they're pissed that you are not as stupid as they are. Mm-hmm. Which is just like 10 levels of what the fuck. You know what I mean? Like wait,
I don't.
You're making fun of me because I'm not as stupid as you are. Like, how does that even work?
I don't think that I am the pinnacle of intelligence. You know, I'm smart enough. I'm smart enough to navigate the world, and I believe that I can see through the lines of bullshit. But I know for a fact that I'm not that fucking dumb as some of these people out there. And it's painful to watch this.
Oh, yeah.
And it's painful to be stuck in a situation where I have to rely on these people. And even more importantly, even as Trump goes away, those people are still right here.
Yep.
Like, I'm going to still have to deal with all the stupidity. Yep. I mean, I'm going to tell you, it was a fucking weight off my shoulders after they finally announced that Biden had quote-unquote won, because all the signs in my town started to come down. And within like 3 days, I saw 0 Trump signs.
Wow.
And I was like, it feels wonderful to drive around again, except for now I just know they're all in hiding. And they're just lying in wait.
Yeah.
Just for another opportunity to act like a total fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not that guy that's like the asshole that's going to start a fight with somebody in the parking lot over a sticker or a sign in a car, unlike some of these people who take it like to that next level.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I don't understand how we got here. Like, what happened? Like, was Trump becoming the president and giving you that license to be an asshole? All it took was just somebody to tell you, hey, it's okay to be an asshole? Is that really all it took for you to take the guard down?
I mean, I will say, and I think that I would say Monty, was that his name? From
Monty, yeah.
Monty kind of touched on this a little bit, is like, when you pass as white, or if you're a white person like myself, other white people think that you're in the club.
Yep.
And so Trump was sort of like a world that I knew was there already, but it didn't have the sort of like sign off from an administrative point of view, I guess you'd say, because growing up in the suburbs, like with all white folks, like they have no problem if they think you're in the club expressing racism on a regular basis.
Oh yeah.
And this is like, and I would say, like, you know, where I grew up is like the people of color that we had were either undocumented folks that were working in restaurants, mm-hmm. or like landscaping, or like people who were like had moved there for a job and were like, what the fuck am I getting into? You know, like people that had like moved from overseas to the United States to teach at like a university or something, and like we're like, oh shit, like this is like all white people, this sucks. Like but yeah, I feel like it was I was privy to that world from like day one. Like I knew it was there. I
knew it was there.
Yeah.
And I knew it was prevalent, but I didn't think so many people would be champing at the bit to literally jump out of the quote-unquote closet to just say to the world, hey, I'm a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like there was enough decorum in our country that even if you held those views, you held them quietly at home. But clearly, I was wrong.
See, the intelligence thing was bad enough, but you pair the intelligence thing with the racism, which, you know, the two kind of go hand in hand. But, you know, in a lot of times, you know, the intelligence thing, they were out about it. Like, you could tell, like, they can't hide it. But the racism, they would keep it tucked away. But just both of them in recent time, it's become such a thing, and they feel empowered in both cases, because not only do they feel empowered now to let the racism fly, because, yeah, most people think I'm white. Both my parents were born in Puerto Rico. So, you know, people don't think anything of it when they're around me, and suddenly spick starts flying around or whatever. So it's, you know, it's the same kind of thing. It's like, if they think you're in the club, they'll let the true colors show. But it's the combination of that plus just feeling so bold about being stupid. Like, it's cool. And I taught my kids this when they were younger, because you see it a lot in school, because kids don't want to be smart. Kids like and they celebrate being dumb, you know, and that influences other kids, and it turns into a bad cycle. But now it's with the adults too. It's like everybody's happy being stupid.
Yeah, I can't stand it. I actually had that conversation earlier today. I was at the kitchen table, and there was some work being done on an app for school, and only got an 85. Now, an 85 is passing perfectly fine, but I'm watching over my shoulder, his shoulder, watching him do the work, and I see him just literally picking things, and he's not really paying attention to what he's doing. He's just attempting to get it done for done's sake. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, I was like, hey, do you want to be considered stupid? And he's like, well, no. And I was like, well, then the teacher's going to think you're stupid because you couldn't answer that question. You know the answer. It's not like you were struggling. You just didn't care. I was like, we don't do that in this house. And if you think you're going to get away with not caring and just being stupid, you need to leave now. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, you're going to be 6, and you need to get the fuck out of my house, basically, because you're not allowed to just be willfully stupid in this house. If you make a mistake or you make an error, it's okay. We can figure out that. But if you just want to be dumb and not actually, like, attempt to do the things that you're supposed to do, you can't be here. Because I don't want to be around people that aren't not necessarily trying to level up, but at least do what is asked of you. Make your best attempt. And our government for the last 4 years has not been making their best attempt. And it's been painful to watch. Like, I'm not going to go on a limb and say that, you know, I loved everything that Obama did for 8 years, but he made an attempt. I didn't ever feel like he was out there just winging it.
Right.
And this last 4 years has been, fuck it. I'm just going to do whatever I want. I'm going to say whatever I want on the internet. I'm just going to wing this shit. And you know what? Winging it doesn't fucking work for an entire country. You want to run your dumbass business into the ground like that? Fine. I don't care. But this ain't that.
Right.
Well, I think the other thing that comes up with like you know, like being aware that racism is there, but not knowing how brazen it was going to be with Trump. I can say that I think it's probably no mystery to anybody that there's a pretty large swath of white folks who think that anything that doesn't benefit them or keep the status quo is somehow disadvantageous to them.
Right.
And so they had 8 years of like a George W. Bush like mud bath, you know, where it was just like all about them, you know. and then to go from that to Obama was like, oh my God, Obama's gonna take everything away from us. You know, they all fucking panicked, because to see like a black president meant like that they were gonna have to sacrifice something for some reason. Like, it was just really strange. It was like there was this like white fear that just broke out, and it was absolutely fucking ridiculous, but it was also just kind of like, oh wow, like these people equate other people's success with like
they see
somehow
it as their own failure.
Yeah, like they're gonna get robbed of something because someone else succeeded.
Right.
And I think like having 8 years of Obama allowed them to craft this narrative of like, for 8 years we've been left behind, and it's like, you have not been fucking left behind. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, it was like,
yeah.
And so I feel like that's part of it too, is they all crafted this like victim like narrative to themselves. And
I have a real question for you, Tom.
Sure.
Do you feel like being in a tertiary portion of the hardcore scene and just the DIY scene in general, do you think that helped you, since you got into it at a reasonably young age, to avoid the traps of being from Tom's River? Because I know how Tom's River is in general. Like, you could have easily fallen into the trap of people that you're talking about and been like them. Like, how did you avoid that? What do you think hardcore and punk rock in general helped keep you from having that type of mindset?
Well, I mean, I will say, like, at 15 years old, when I started to listen to hardcore, I probably, you know, at 15 you have the intellect of a 15-year-old. So like, I'm taking in the sloganeering, you know,
right.
but you know, don't have the intellect to really dive deep into these things at that point. But the concepts are getting introduced to me, and so like something is getting thrown at the wall, you know. And I think maybe the fact that there were shows that happened in Tom's River at that point, but they were like, I was 15, the kids doing shows were like 23, and that doesn't seem like a big age gap, but when you're a kid, they are, because your parents aren't going to drop you off at some 23-year-old house to go to a show. But I was seeing bands at this house, and there were lots of bands that were not white folks, and it was like, holy shit, this is the first time I'm seeing this. Probably, I think, I'm trying to think of like the only other band that like was on my radar as a kid was probably like Living Color and Fishbone. And then like when Rage Against the Machine came out like later on, but like to get to see like non-white folks playing aggressive music, you know, because it's like, I think there was like a huge presence of non-white folks in like R&B and hip hop, but like not so much in like the aggressive stuff that I was into. And I think like when you went to shows in the 90s, it was also this experience where people were passing out like literature or like flyers for like a protest or something like that. And it kind of made me feel like, oh wow, this really is like not just people playing music. Like, this is actually like people getting involved in things. And I think like those things maybe at first were attractive to me, and the like, yeah, fuck my parents, like I'm gonna fucking, you know, like definitely like the just like rebellious spirit of it at first. Like, I mean, I went vegan when I was 16, and it really pissed off my parents. And I was like, well,
what the fuck are we even gonna cook for you anymore?
Yeah, I was just like, well, this must be good because my parents are pissed, you know. But I remember my parents getting the most pissed when I came home with a copy of Seize the Time, which is a autobiographical book by Bobby Seale about his time in the Black Panthers.
Okay.
Dad was just so pissed off. He was
right.
What the fuck are you reading that? He was just like really pissed off. And I remember like, okay, well the veganism thing pissed him off, but or, like I would say like the veganism thing kind of like irritated them, but me bringing home this book just
was like
off the edge. So there must be something here that's like, and I think I owe the ability to kind of like be introduced to those concepts in total to the punk rock scene. Absolutely. I don't think there's any question about it. I think if I was just like some normie dude that like played JV varsity baseball or some shit like that, you know, no disrespect if you played baseball, but like I would never have found any of these concepts. You know what I mean? I'd be working at some fucking financial firm right now and talking about how our country's going down the tubes or something. You know,
yeah.
I don't know. I hope I wouldn't be, but based on like where some of the people I went to high school with and ended up, and where like some of my family ended up, like I'm kind of like, oh, that could have been me, you know, like
right.
But every day I wake up and realize I have more work to do. I have more things that I have to understand better, more things I have to learn. I think that being in this like sort of DIY punk scene where there's like lots of bands coming up now with like non-white folks, non-binary folks, and trans folks, it's like allowed me to really have this kind of view of the world that like I wouldn't normally get, you know. And I don't know. It's really, really strange to talk about other people in my friends circle as being these people that teach me and inform me.
But those are your best teachers.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
literally.
just by virtue of them being themselves, like they teach me so much. And so, yeah, and that plays into another holy shit. I'm thankful to be here, and I'm glad that like at 42, these bands are still like, yeah, come play the show with us, because it's like it's not just playing the show. It's like, holy shit, like I learned about what this is today, and I learned why this is a problem, and like it's, you know, I think that's amazing.
So like for me, I see lots of things go by me, and there are only certain people that you have enough rapport with that you can, if you're confused about something, feel comfortable enough to reach out and ask a question. And the other day, you know, my friend posted that she saw herself as queer. And when I learned that word, and we're talking in the 80s, that was specific to talking about people being just gay. But she explained to me after I asked her, I was like, well, look, can you please school me on what this actually means? Because when I read it, I only read it as this, but what do you mean when you say it? And she explained that basically it's that it would be, at least in my imagination, based on the way she explained it, closer to pansexual, where she's not specifically attracted to like only men. She's across the board, and she just calls it queer. And I was like, okay, fine, I can accept that. Like, I'm not trying to be rude, I just don't know. And you know, it takes having friends in different sections that you trust to be able to ask the questions that are hard to ask people you don't know.
Yes.
So, you know, I thank my friends in general that allow me to be in a different space and not feel scared to ask a question. Because there are certainly many times where something has come up and I'm like, nope, not today, not asking that one. That's a loaded question. It's not the right time or place. I'm out of here.
Totally. And so I think that like hardcore and punk also at least like in like the little DIY scene, the little like basement art gallery DIY scene that we play in, that like my band plays in, it does set up this sort of like environment where it's like, well, you're here for music, but you're probably here to like learn something and just be a better person. So like if you're asking questions, like, you know, try to be tactful about them, but you're probably asking them because you're generally interested, and you're not trying to start a fight. You're not trying to be a dick. It's just like you want to learn more. And it's weird because I was talking to my coworker. I sent her to a library conference about like technology like last year, and when she went, they had like little name tags, and it said on the name tags to put your pronoun.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman is like 54.
Okay.
Grew up in Iowa, and then moved to upstate New York like 20 years ago or so. Came back from the conference and was like, Tom, do you think that this is weird? And I'm like, no, that's like pretty standard for a punk rock show. Like
totally normal.
Like for like a library IT conference, like I think it's cool. I understand why you've never seen this before, but it was funny because it's like this thing that she's never seen before. She's never seen people say, here, identify what pronouns you want to be called by. She had never seen that before, and for her, it was just like, wait, people do this? What is this a thing? And like and she was really nice about it, and she asked me about it because she was like, well, you're kind of like the weirdo at work. Let me ask you. And I explained it to her, and she was like very receptive to it. And we had to do like a pretty long, like deep talk on it, where I talked about, you know, well, you identify as female, but like gender's a spectrum. You prefer to wear pants and watch football and drink Coors Light. Like that probably puts you a little bit over on the dial from like what people would, you know, deem as like feminine in these traditional gender roles. Like, do you want to box yourself into that, or do you want to be you? And like we talk, you know, talking about all these things and kind of like relating it to her, and it made me feel like so fortunate to be involved in punk and hardcore, because it was like, oh wow, like if I went to this conference, that wouldn't be weird to me, and it wouldn't be weird to me only because I've seen it before in the context of punk and hardcore. You know?
Right.
Like,
I mean,
yeah.
I support everybody doing whatever it is that makes them happy. Like, I do not care what anybody is doing at all. Like, you want to fart in a fucking soda bottle and sniff that later. I don't care. Like, it doesn't. If that's your thing, that's your thing. I support everybody doing whatever makes them happy. It means nothing to me personally, because I'm not tied to anybody other than me. So like, as long as you're letting me be me, I'm gonna let you be you. And I think the world would be better off
that way.
Because like, what, like, at the end of the day, what does it matter? Like, to you, when you go home and you're minding your own business in your house, what anybody else is doing, I don't understand what the control aspect of other people is. It irritates the shit out of me.
Well, what when you started hearing, when both of you started hearing the phrase "Make America Great Again," what
I wanted to know.
What, yeah, like what was that sort of trying to elicit in your interpretation?
I mean, honestly, it just made me want to fight people in the street. But because it's never been quote unquote great. What he was trying to say, and Gary, don't mind me if I'm jumping on your boat here, but it was more make America white again. That's literally what I heard when it was said.
Well, yeah, because think about it, like, America great for who? Like,
never been great for me.
It's but that's what I mean, is as a black man, you know, Len, you've talked about it before on the show, like, when was it great for you?
Never.
You know?
I mean, it's the greatest it's ever been, like, in this time frame for me. It's the least I have to worry is now. Every year that goes by, even in this Trump time frame, every year that goes by, it gets better for me because things get further and further into the past, and old things start to not necessarily die off, but smooth out. But you know, like we talked about my father earlier, he turned 86 on Friday. So that means when the civil rights movement happened, he was 34 when they actually signed that document in 68. At 34, he became an actual full human being, citizen of this state. I mean, obviously he was a citizen, but, you know, he didn't have his rights until he was, like, I don't know, 10 years younger than I am right now. It's just it's insane to me that people will argue that it's been so long, and I'm like, it hasn't been that long. My man was a full adult, and he's still here right now. Like, it's not that long. It's just hard. So when you said when you ask the question, what did it mean? Like, it meant nothing to me. It meant that he wanted to roll back to the time in which his father was a KKK member, and you know, they were ruling over New York City apartments and not allowing black people and Hispanic people to move in because that brings down the value of your place. It meant everything that everybody thought it meant on both sides, because everybody that bought into it was agreeing with him without having to say it themselves.
So, but even if you take that in a different direction and take it from race to income, you know, I grew up like, you know, we were always like a lower middle class family. You know, my parents didn't make a lot of money. I don't make a lot of money. It's not like I've got money in the stock market or anything. But like, for somebody like me being in that income bracket, like, when is it going to be great? Like, when was it great? Like, it's average, but it's not like it's really gotten any better for me or people like me, you know? And you look at a lot of these other people, I always said about Trump that he was selling people on a bill of goods, and he was going to these places. Len and I have talked about it before. He's going to these places in like Pennsylvania, these old steel towns where they lost all the jobs because the mill closed, and he's selling them a bill of goods and like, we're going to bring manufacturing jobs back. No, you're not.
They're never coming back.
No, they're not coming back because the idea of doing that involves dismantling a whole infrastructure that's been built up in the government over the past however many 20, 30, 40 years, involving regulation and deregulation and things like that. For you to bring manufacturing jobs back here, you are going to have to tell your corporate buddies that they can't go and make shit in China where people do it for $1 a day. They're not going to do that because it's cutting into their profits. So the whole thing was a sham from the beginning. Whether you're talking about people like me who were like your average schmuck making, you know, we're making more than minimum wage, but we're certainly not making enough that we're like throwing money in the stock market, like I said. But then, you know, all these other people that are in these towns that used to be something, look at Detroit and car manufacturing, you know. Even I've talked about my neighborhood in the Bronx, like not far from me, there used to be warehouses and manufacturing stuff. Like I remember when I was a kid, and that was the tail end of it because eventually it all was gone.
I've mentioned it too that my town used to have 3 factories in it.
Right.
So we had a GM plant, we had a naval air propulsion plant, and we had a Homosoap plant. The Homosoap plant is the only one that still exists, but they cut their staff down to like 1/8 of what it was when it was at its height, because people just aren't buying it. And then there are machines that make the gypsum board much more efficiently, etc., than it was back in the day. Yeah. But they turned the old GM plant they're turning it into a new train station and all like medium priced housing, but like condos and townhouses on top of what they're hoping is going to be an influx of businesses. That site has sat vacant since 1991. It is 30 years later, and they're finally building now. And it's really in the hope, and COVID really has kind of fucked them, but that people start to flock to our town because every other business is going out, and it's been going out. So they were hoping that this was going to be the influx that was needed, because we're in a perfect location between New York City and Philadelphia. You could live here, and your wife could work in Philly, and you could work in New York City, and you see each other at night when you get home, and it's a reasonable trip. It's an hour each way. It doesn't matter. You can do it. I'm telling you right now, manufacturing jobs were never coming back. It was a fucking pipe dream. It was a lie. They sold you a bill. They sold you a bill of goods that was never even on the fucking boat. It was never coming here.
So I think that the majority of those people know that their jobs aren't going to come back, and there is sort of like, well, who's to blame for that? And I think Make America Great Again, from the minute that I heard it, was these things. Like, my coworker was obviously really cool in the example I gave before, okay? Mm-hmm. But there were people going to that conference who were like, what is this bullshit? Identify pronouns? Why can't things just be like they used to be? Okay? And that's just a small fucking example that just gets under people's skin because they're sacrificing space to someone else. I feel like Make America Great Again was all those small things that got under people's skin in the Obama administration. Like, oh, now LGBT people can get married? Like, what the fuck? Like that. And it kind of goes back to what Len was saying. Like, well, why does that matter to you? How does that affect you in any way? But for some reason, it gets under people's skin. And so, like, I feel like when I heard Make America Great Again, and maybe you're right. Maybe some people did get duped into thinking their jobs were going to come back after 25 years of fucking being gone. I don't know. Maybe they are that dumb. I have no clue. Maybe they are.
I think a few of them are.
You know what? It's not even dumb. It's also desperation.
Desperate, yeah. Desperate. But I do think a lot of it was people saying like, oh well, like look at all these concessions I have to make so that someone else feels comfortable, and somehow that's a sacrifice for me. And among the white population that I have to deal with in my life, I can say that was a huge sentiment among them.
Well, you live up there Albany has some diversity in general, but as you get outside of the city, it's fucking...
Yeah. And even like where I grew up in New Jersey, and like the people that I still know from like high school or like family and extended family, some of them have all expressed this sort of sentiment, which was just kind of like, they all felt like they were sacrificing cultural space, and it was somehow, and it was just because they're really not, at all. Right. So it was a very like, when I heard "Make America Great Again," I felt like that was the code word for that. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna get it back so that like you're on top and you don't have to make concessions for other people, and you don't have to, and that I was like, this is not gonna be good. I was just like, fuck, this is not gonna be good.
I mean, I knew immediately when in 2015 when he started running, and was actually gaining some traction. I turned to one of my friends, Tony, and I was like, yo, bro, this is going downhill. And he was way more optimistic than I was. And I was like, no, bro.
Yeah.
I was like, no, this is looking ugly, and it's about to get really bad. And over the course of the last 2 years, he's finally come around and been like, yo, when you told me that, you were right. And I was like, I mean, I could see it on the fucking wall that it was coming. I just didn't realize exactly how bad it was going to be. Like, it caught me a little off guard that I was so right. I knew it was going to be bad.
It got more traction than any of us expected. But I think if we really thought about it, we would have seen it coming, because it's all
out there.
It's like a book. It really is. And
so Tom, how do you feel about Parler?
Oh God!
We've Parler the many
times. It's like you had like selfie culture. You had the internet where people can just talk all kinds of shit and not have to answer for any of it. Like, there's just so many different little factors that all came together into this.
Yeah.
All these little things all come together and form giant orange-haired racist Voltron.
I love
it. That's really what it comes down to. It was all those things all coming together into this one giant mess.
I was serious about my question about Parler. How do you feel about that?
So, if I have this correct, Parler is basically super conservative, and I say conservative with an umbrella. There's probably like white supremacists in there. There's probably pro-life people in there. There's probably like the whole spectrum is in there. Mm-hmm. So Parler is this new social media platform because they claim that they were being silenced on traditional existing social media platforms, and so they wanted to create a quote-unquote safe space where they can not have any censorship to their conservative ideals. I'm assuming that that's what it is. I have not read into it. I've heard some people talk about it, and I've just been like, well, that's ridiculous. Next, but
guys need a safe space.
but I do feel that Parler will be an incubator, much in the same way that Facebook has allowed conservative ideology to incubate as well there.
My problem with it is that now it's fully out of the public eye, because none of us are on Parler. Only those people who really think that way. It's kind of like the 4chan and 8chan thing, where like the shittiest of shitty ideas all went to hang out together. And my fear is that there is no one over there to chin check them at all. And what we're seeing now is going to be so much worse the next time we have to deal with it, because they're going to be gaining traction much like Voltron. They're just going to be assembling in new forms. And there are enough of them over there to be dangerous.
I mean, I will say, to you were talking before about your friend Tony.
Mm-hmm.
I think, okay. So I was optimistic as well, and I think it's because the Facebook algorithm based on who I'm friends with and based on like my feed, didn't really show me any like viable option for Trump to win. So when I looked at social media, it was like, no, of course this guy's not going to win. Like, who the fuck's going to vote for him? It's like every post I see is like people making fun of him. Of course no one's going to vote for him. And I think maybe like Parler might operate the same way. Like people being like, you know, there's no way a Democratic candidate can win in 2024. When I post on Parler, everybody agrees with me that they won't, you know? And then, so I don't know, those sort of like very purposefully, politically crafted social media platforms really deceive us. You know what I mean? Like, and I think to a real fault. I was basically, I had my foot in my mouth when Trump won. I was like, oh shit, I didn't think that was gonna go down like that, you know?
I just did a quick cursory search, and there are 4 million active users and 10 million total users on Parler right now.
Wow.
So
which is pretty big.
But on Parler, can bots sign up for that, you think?
There is definitely no way they don't.
Sure.
I mean,
have they bot-proofed that yet, or no?
No, definitely. I mean, if
there's
Twitter isn't bot-proofed yet,
I was going to say there's no such thing as bot-proofing.
Bot-proof. I also heard that like Parler isn't paid for by ads. There's just like like rich conservative people just
pumping money in it.
Yeah, that just put up the bill for this. So they're not really worried about like.
Yo, did you guys see that Ricky Schroeder from
Silver Spoons
spent money out of his own pocket to get this fucking
Bail
asshole
that fucking kid out. Him and the MyPillow guy.
Yeah. Like, come on, man. You were obviously on a show called Silver Spoons, but you didn't have to live up to it. Like,
didn't have to go there.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's painful out here right now.
And actually, Len, to your point before, like growing up, like what influences you to like go a certain way? Dude, growing up, Silver Spoons was like one of my favorite shows. It was like
mine too.
You know?
I love that show. I was like, I want to have that kind of money. I want to have that kind of house. Like, what's going on now? Let's get the dough.
Where could I have ended up? Oh God, trying to bail out a white supremacist from fucking jail.
Oh God.
Jesus Christ.
Oh man.
So, to kind of wrap this up, tell me just a little bit about the real Tom. What does Tom do in his fucking off time? Like, not playing music, because clearly you haven't been playing music. And, I mean, we know you're married and you're living near Albany, but, like, what do you do? Do you watch movies?
So, when COVID hit and the lockdown started, I remember a lot of people being bummed, like, shit, you know, and rightfully so. A lot of jobs were going to get lost, and a lot of people were going to have to stay at home in situations maybe they didn't want to be in. But my job and my wife's job were kind of like COVID proof. We could both like work from home if we needed to. And I felt like extremely thankful for the position I was in to like just be able to like stay home and still get paid and work. And when I moved up to Albany, I was having such a hard time with like homesickness. I lived in New Jersey for 38 years of my life. So to move at 38 years old to some place where you don't know anybody is just fucking terrible. And I was feeling really bad about myself for like not being able to make friends all that well and stuff. But when COVID came, it was like, well, having friends and doing all that shit like doesn't matter right now. Like it doesn't matter if you have friends right now because you can't go see them anyway. So it's like that whole part of my self-esteem was I didn't have to worry about that. And it's really given me like a new look into like life. Like I'm really grateful for everything I have. Like my wife is like one of the most intelligent, compassionate people that I've ever met, and to get to like stay home with her and like live this life with her is amazing. And so I spend a lot of time thinking about like how things could have gone really wrong, and I could be in a much worse position right now. But I'm just like so thankful for like when I get up and my wife and I take the dog for a walk, going like a 1.5 mile walk, and it's just, and I got a dog. She's behind me. I rescued a dog 2 years ago, and when we got her, she was just like really sketchy, just like not into anybody, really kind of like growled at me, just not really into me at all. And now she's, we've watched her grow up into this confident dog, and like just to see her like have this life.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I think I spend a lot of time just being really thankful that I've landed where I have. And then in terms of just like material, like fucking around time, I watch a lot of sci-fi and I play a lot of music. And you are hitting the Gary's home run right now.
Yeah, you started talking about sci-fi right up my alley.
Yeah, I've there's like certain TV shows that like my wife can watch with me and she'll be okay with, and then there's like the hardcore stuff that she's like,
yep.
I don't know if I could watch the Expanse.
I know that feeling. Give me one.
I'm really into The Expanse.
That's good. I'm not caught up on it, but I did watch some of it and I did like it. I just got lost in other shit. I got to go back to it.
I don't even know what the fuck you guys are talking about right now.
The Expanse is awesome. You got to watch it. It's so good.
What is it about? Give me a 2-minute rundown or a 1-minute rundown.
1 minute rundown is The Expanse is that humans colonize Mars, and there's an asteroid belt between Mars and Earth, and they send people to go mine this asteroid belt. And so over like 100 years or so, there's like people who have lived their whole life on Mars, people who have lived their whole life in the belt, and people who still live on Earth. And it's like sort of like this political drama of how those three people get along. And then it's got this whole sci-fi sort of element to it. It's great.
Okay.
It's really good.
Maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah. Battlestar Galactica is always a classic too, if you get around to that.
I have actually watched Battlestar Galactica. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay. Yeah, I watch a lot of sci-fi, and I cook a lot too, because I just really love to cook. So.
Okay, last question.
Now that's Len's direction now. You switch from one side to completely the other.
Last question of the night. Top 3 dishes to cook during quarantine.
Okay, top 3. I've been cooking a lot of stuff that I can like eat for the rest of the week. Probably red curry with coconut milk.
Okay.
Probably my first. Do like, I don't know, in that I would probably do like some tofu and like some like mixed vegetables. Do a second thing. Last night I did a chili with that Beyond Meat stuff, and I did a huge thing of cornbread with that, and we're gonna eat that for the next 4 days. And it's actually all the cornbread is gone because we ate the cornbread faster than.
Bro, if I was at your house, you would have no cornbread left. I'm
it was just
right
like
now.
Kind of ridiculous.
Fuck all your cornbread up.
Well, because the way I planned it out was like 2 pieces of cornbread per serving of chili, and then it turned into like 4 pieces of cornbread per serving.
It would have been all cornbread for me and all chili for you. I'd be like, here, you eat the chili. I'm just gonna douse myself in the crumbs of this.
There you go.
This cornbread. So let me ask you this.
Sure.
Before you get to your third thing. Of the 2 popular meat substitutes, you said that you made it with Beyond. Do you like that one better than the other one?
Yeah, I like Beyond better than Impossible.
Because I was at Whole Foods and they were cooking an Impossible burger, and I thought the store was on fire. It did not smell good at all.
I mean, neither smell good when you're cooking them, for sure.
I've never smelled the Beyond one.
But
so
I mean, I haven't had a real burger in 25 years, so I don't know if it tastes the same or not. but
I guarantee.
I made a Beyond Meatloaf for my in-laws, and they were like, "Yeah, this is great." So I don't know, maybe
You're talking to an avid meat eater.
Sure.
I make no bones about it. I've tasted the Beyond Burger. It tastes perfectly fine. It doesn't taste like meat, and I don't think it should taste like meat. If it tasted like meat, that would be really like mind-blowingly dumb. Like, why would you do that? And I understand the reason why people would want to do it, because it's like you're used to eating burgers. It's normal. Like everybody has them, so you want to have one. I've never smelled the Beyond one being cooked like fresh right there. I just tasted it after it was done. But the other one, the Impossible Burger, I was like, I don't know if I could choke that one based on the smell, because I'm I'm not a texture guy. I'm a smell guy.
The aroma needs to please you before it even gets there. Okay.
Yes. So I've never drank, I've never smoked, never done any drugs, but the reason why I've never drank is because the smell of beer and the smell of alcohol.
I'm right there with you.
It immediately, I'm just like, nah, I don't think I should be drinking it. It doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
And for me just vegetables or whatever is totally fine. When I go to an Indian restaurant and I get paneer, I'm all about it. Or even if there's tofu in the dish, I'm perfectly fine with that. But the burger substitute, I'll eat a black bean burger. It's perfectly fine. You know what I mean? But for me, it's the smell thing. I struggle.
I gotcha.
But I'm sure your chili is fucking delicious, and I probably would not even know the difference.
Well, this is the first time I use the Beyond stuff. I usually just make it without. I usually just use an extra cup of chickpeas or black beans or something. But I was like, oh, I have this Beyond stuff. I'll try it, and it was okay.
Too much information, but black beans are generally banned at my house for me because I could burn the whole house down if I eat too many of them.
Okay.
Yeah, it just is a rough night for anyone near me.
Understandable.
So, what's number 3?
Number 3 is... So, my wife usually doesn't like to make stuff that's really pasta-ish, you know what I mean? I can't just make a pasta marinara and have her be okay with it. If I make pasta, it has to have some type of flair to it of some sort. Mm-hmm. So I got into the whole sesame oil, peanut sauce, Thai, garlic, chili sort of, and just been kind of fucking around with that. And the bad thing is that my wife is a celiac, and so I have to make everything gluten free. So to make these Thai peanut noodle things, I have to use this gluten free pasta. I can't just use the regular Thai stuff.
Right.
So I mean, it tastes good, but I know it could be better if I had wheat noodles. But I got to make for 2. So, but that's my third one. It's the peanut sesame noodle sort of thing. I'm into that.
Well, let your wife know that I am basic bitch and that regular old marinara pasta will do just fine at my house.
I mean, usually if we weren't in COVID, my wife travels for work, especially from June to August.
And that's when you wild out?
Yeah, and I'll just be pasta, and I'll just make a whole thing of it. And that's what I eat, and it's awesome.
I love it. So, do you ever find yourself going out to a restaurant specifically to just buy some pasta because you know that she doesn't even have to be in contact with it? You can just fuck it. I'm just gonna get some pasta because I really want some pasta today.
I can't because for 2 reasons. When I was a kid and being vegan in the mid 90s, the only thing that you can get at a restaurant was pasta.
Oh, yeah.
And I refuse to get it now because it's no, there's so much more. The other thing is I'm wait, You want like $9.95 for a plate of pasta?
Yeah.
I could buy like 10 boxes of pasta for that. What are you talking about? So yeah.
You could buy 5 boxes of pasta and 2 jars of like reasonable sauce.
Exactly.
And have a pasta party.
Exactly. So that's like where I'm at. Is like, no, I'm not paying.
Let me side note question you. Since you've brought it up, how do you feel about the interaction of the fryer and vegans getting French fries at places that willfully cook their French fries in with the chicken and the deep fried shrimp and whatever else hits the fryer? Like, were you one of the people that were like, hell no, I won't eat out of your fryer because you're cross frying?
No, I mean, for me personally, I'm a reasonable person that lives in the world and understands that like cross-contamination will take place if you're not eating at a restaurant specifically catered to whatever diet that you're on. Mm-hmm. And so like I think being realistic about something like that is like, yeah, I don't know, I'm gonna eat the fries. Like, of course they probably went in the same fryer, but like it's not like if you don't get the fries and you decide to get like a salad or something, who's to say that the tongs they used to make the salad didn't
touch
go
the
into something else
or whatever?
So like, yeah, I think if you're going out to eat at a restaurant that doesn't specifically cater to your diet, you're taking the chance, and you should be comfortable with that and not make a fucking stink about it, because it's like this is the world, this is what's going to take place, like, and so I've never really had a problem with that. No.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering, because like I look at it and I'm like, if I was vegan, I wouldn't eat anywhere that wasn't either vegetarian or vegan, at least, because I feel like if you go to a vegetarian restaurant, it's pretty easy to order something vegan and know that you're not going to really get contaminated.
I mean, I think like there's places that have kind of stepped up their game. Like I can go to Chipotle and be like, can you guys do a glove change? And they'll all do a glove change. Mm-hmm. Blaze pizzas like that too. I don't know if you guys have Blaze where you are, but it's like it's like a Chipotle.
I'm in New Jersey, like the armpit of Pizza Alley, and there's no
when I moved
here.
up to upstate New York, it was like pizza and bagels are like the two things that are impossible to get up here.
Well, for good reason.
Yeah, like I tried bagels at many different places, and it was just like, what is this bullshit? Like,
it's not a bagel
to sell off as a bagel. Like,
well, I won't eat bagels in my town. Like everybody is like, oh, I love bagels, and I'm like, these bagels suck.
You're not close enough to Manhattan.
That's exactly it. You got to be close enough to the right water to get the thing that you need.
Yep.
And these people are not importing the water, so I'm not eating their trash ass bagels. They can keep them. It's garbage.
So one of the things about driving down to Brooklyn for like shows is like I'll always like stop and get like a half dozen bagels somewhere. Like,
right.
You know, it's just if I'm making the drive into Brooklyn, I'm coming out with a bag of bagels.
I gotta go home with a bag. You're like, I got the bag.
Yeah, because there's no, you can't get bagels.
You
up
can't.
There. Yeah, it's terrible.
Nope. Well, Tom, I appreciate you coming on the show, and you should come back sometime.
This has been great. Thank you.
And the next time you come back on, we should actually just talk about sci-fi stuff.
Yes,
absolutely.
So that Len can take a nap.
Yeah, I'll try and do some prep ahead of time.
Try to watch. I don't know. Check out like Dark on Netflix. Check out if you haven't watched The Expanse, check that out as well.
I'll put on the list of things.
Does Stranger Things fall into the sci-fi?
It does not fall into sci-fi for me. It falls into 80s retro for me. Okay. But it is,
that, I mean, like coming of age adventure film.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean, I get that there is a sci-fi element to it, and I enjoy that show greatly. So it's totally fine.
Okay.
But I didn't specifically put it as sci-fi for me. Some people might.
So I do feel like there is a good batch, like the Handmaid's Tale, Stranger Things, that have like sci-fi characteristics but fall into a different niche.
Right.
A little touch of it.
Yeah.
Or you can just go full on heavy like Westworld.
Oh yeah.
First season of Westworld.
First season is great.
No.
All right, I guess I got stuff to watch, but I have to admit that
I'll give you a whole list, buddy.
Gary is mad at me because I haven't watched The Mandalorian yet. So
I haven't either yet. I'm sorry.
Outnumbered.
No.
I want to watch it. I haven't. I know I need to pay attention to it. So to my left, I have that big ass screen. I'm in my basement, like in my old studio that I moved out of to move to the new studio, but it's in my basement or whatever. But I got like a 40-inch screen that I watch TV on all day while I'm working. But I feel like if I put on Mandalorian, I need to actually pay attention to it. I can't just put it on in the background. Like I watched all of Better Call Saul, all 5 seasons that are out, without actually looking at the TV because
background show.
It's all dialogue and very little visual element that was needed. So, you can, or if I want to watch like a comedy special, like it just laughs in the corner of the room. I feel like if it was Mandalorian, I'd have to be like this the whole time because I miss it. And I don't want to miss it. So it's like my time to actually do it is limited.
All right. Well, thank you guys for doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Like
thanks.
I said,
thanks for coming on.
I love it. So
social media. Where can they find your music?
hundradsofau.bandcamp.com, facebook.com/hundradsofau, and Instagram @hundradsofau.
What is AU?
AU stands for astronomical units, which is the it's the average distance between the middle of the Earth and the middle of the moon.
Okay.
Nerd shit. I like it.
Okay. See, I always thought it was hundreds of awe, and I was like, what the fuck is an awe? But it's AU. All right.
It's from the Alistair Reynolds sci-fi classic Revelation Space.
Going deep.
Some super nerd shit right there.
Going deep.
I'm just losing points for Len over here.
No, not at all. I support it 100%. I have a finance degree. I'm all about like numbers and math in general. I graduated. I finished through Calc 4. Like I love math, and I didn't have a book. I did not own a book for any calculus class. Damn. So math is great with me. I just never got into the sci-fi aspect of it. That's all. All right.
Guys.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom. Thanks for coming on. We'll definitely have you on again, and I'm down to get deep into the sci-fi, and we'll learn Len a little something.
That'd be great. I love it.
Thanks, man. TheUpgradePodcast.net for all of our fun stuff. And that's it. I'm Gary Muttley. He is Len Carmichael. We are The Upgrade, and we'll see you guys again soon. Peace.
Peace.
Later.